Xianxia has just publicly claimed the moon god empress as his wife, shaking the entire realm. The princes of the moon god realm are not about to let that stand. Leave a like and subscribe to witness the confrontation. Achoo! After returning to Jasmine's side, Xianxia sneezed heavily. What's wrong? Jasmine asked as she slanted her eyes towards Xianxia. It's probably someone saying things about me behind my back, Xianxia said as he rubbed the tip of his nose. You were chased back by Xianxia? Jasmine asked, her eyes gleaming with playfulness. More or less, Xianxia said as he spread his hands helplessly. After all, she's still just a young child, so her endurance naturally cannot compare to an adult like me. Oh, is that it? A cold smile remained on Jasmine's face. Aren't the techniques you always use to cheat women of the highest order? You have those in addition to that thick skin of yours, which is several hundred times thicker than most people. So could it be that you can't even handle a young child? Cough, cough. Xianxia nearly choked on his own saliva as he coughed. If someone else were to say that, he would have immediately objected to it in the most righteous and pious manner. But Jasmine knew every single bit of his dark history, so he could only mumble in an embarrassed voice. This matter still requires some time. Moreover, Xianxia is no simple child. This is the heavenly wolf star god we're talking about. So shouldn't you have an even greater desire to conquer that hill, PFFFFT? Let's speak about serious matters, Jasmine said as she decided to stop her teasing. Have you completely comprehended Xianxia's heavenly wolf hell god's tome? Xianxia nodded his head. Yes, other than the 7th sword style, the previous 6 sword styles are surprisingly less difficult to comprehend than I imagined. That's only the case for you, Jasmine said. As for the 7th sword style, you do not need to think on it any longer. It isn't a sword technique that you can learn simply by relying on your natural talent and ability to comprehend. I understand, Xianxia said as he nodded his head. After he had heard Jasmine describe Xianxia's past as the heavenly cursed lone star, and the method she used to become the heavenly wolf star god, he had already begun to understand the implication behind the words, solely hatred without heart. Even though you do not possess the divine power of the heavenly wolf, even if you take the heavenly wolf hell god's tome without that divine power, it is still an extremely strong, heavy sword technique. Furthermore, if there comes a day where you desire the heavenly wolf's divine power, and you have obtained the truly complete heavenly wolf hell god's tome, you can ask Xianxia, and she will tell you how. Ah! Excitement appeared on Xianxia's face. Is there truly a way for me to obtain the heavenly wolf divine power? I was talking about the future. Jasmine said while emphasizing those words, now is not the time. Let's wait for you to emerge from the eternal heaven-divine realm first. We can consider it afterwards. However, the first thing you need is Xianxia's cooperation, and whether she is willing to or not depends on your own skills. Xianxia scratched his head as he attentively mulled over Jasmine's words. He already intimately understood just how strong the heavenly wolf hell god's tome was. If he was able to completely master the 6 sword techniques of the heavenly wolf that Xianxia had taught him, his power would definitely improve significantly. If he were able to obtain the heavenly wolf divine power, and he could fully display the might of the heavenly wolf hell god's tome, it would definitely cause his overall strength to soar yet again. Jasmine continued to speak. The matter of you cultivating the heavenly wolf hell god's tome is something that the old villain is already aware of, so you can use it outside to your heart's content. You don't need to restrict yourself anymore. After you enter the eternal heaven-divine realm, besides increasing your profound strength and fully mastering the 6 sword techniques of the heavenly wolf, you need to strive to cultivate an even more important power of yours. Jasmine raised Xianxia's right hand. After going through the 9-stage lightning tribulation, you should be able to control the heavenly law's lightning, correct? After the world's shocking heavenly tribulation, the entire eastern divine region had all witnessed the scene of Xianxia using the heavenly tribulation lightning he generated using his own profound energy to bloodily oppress Luo Changsheng. Xianxia focused for a moment, and a cluster of purple lightning immediately appeared and started crackling and flashing in the middle of his palm. At that time, I used all my strength to use the power of the lightning tribulation to fully recover from my wounds. After being blasted by 9 waves, I somehow managed to comprehend the laws behind that heavenly law lightning. The lightning in Xianxia's hand appeared to be a deep purple color, and it looked no different from ordinary lightning. But despite her strength, Jasmine could still clearly feel a spiritual pressure that was out of the ordinary. Every time this lightning flashed, it seemed to touch one's very soul. The existence of the heavenly law is something that is vague and illusory, but the fact that the heavenly law cannot be defied is common knowledge. However, not only did you defy it, you even managed to grasp control of lightning that exists at the level of the heavenly law. In the history of the God realm, this is something that is completely unprecedented, and it is also something that no one has ever imagined before. It is also because you used your own profound energy to release that kind of heavenly law lightning, that they truly do somewhat believe that you are the child of the heavens, that the heavenly mystery realm addressed you as. And this also includes the true God prophecy. So you want me to concentrate on cultivating this lightning? Xianxia asked. Yes, Jasmine said with a heavy nod of her head. It can be seen from the 9-stage lightning tribulation that occurred that day, that the lowest level of this heavenly law lightning is purple-colored lightning. The scarlet-colored lightning is on a higher level compared to the purple-colored lightning, and the highest level of this heavenly law lightning is that brilliant white lightning. Luo Guxi is the #1 person in the Eastern Divine region if you don't count the King realms, and her strength definitely befits her fame and renown. In fact, even if the current Xianxia were to cross blades with her right now, she would not be able to beat Luo Guxi. But you merely controlled a remnant of that white-colored tribulation lightning, yet you were able to severely wound her in an instant. Jasmine's eyes gradually grew focused. If that is the case, then if there comes a day where you can generate that white-colored tribulation lightning using your own profound energy, perhaps there really wouldn't be anybody who could be your opponent in this universe. Xianxia gave a heavy nod of his head as he replied, Amen, I understand. Furthermore, in order to maximize the strength of the tribulation lightning, one naturally needs to have a compatible lightning profound art to go along with it. Jasmine continued speaking, and the words she spoke did not seem to be words that she had thought of on the fly. Instead, it sounded like she had already thought this through considerably. Your Yun family's core profound art, the purple cloud art, is a kind of lightning-based profound art. At the level of the God realm, the purple cloud art may not seem like much, but it has been passed down in the Yun family for 10,000 years, and it has also gone through countless evolutions because of the Yun family bloodline. Even though it is a far cry from the strongest, it is the profound art that most suits you and the lightning profound art that is the easiest for you to master. If there is no better choice, you can try to combine the heavenly tribulation lightning with your Yun family's purple cloud art. And I believe that given your ability, you will definitely be successful in creating a lightning profound art that belongs to you alone. In fact, I've already thought of a name for you. Jasmine slowly pronounced these 5 words, Heavenly Law Tribulation Lightning Art. Heavenly Law Tribulation Lightning Art. The very name itself possessed a heavenly might that caused people to tremble. Xianxia clenched his fist, and the lightning in his palm disappeared. After that, he once again nodded his head with no hesitation. All right, then let's call it the Heavenly Law Tribulation Lightning Art, and even if it is in order to live up to the name that you have given it, I will definitely perfectly create it. Jasmine gave a small nod of her head. She had already charted the path for his future cultivation, so the progress that he made in the 3,000 years he stayed in the eternal Heaven-Defying realm would be entirely up to himself. Tomorrow, you will follow that old villain to the eternal Heaven realm. After that, you will follow the entourage from the eternal Heaven realm and travel to the Moon God realm to participate in the Moon God Emperor's wedding. After that, you will enter the eternal Heaven Pearl, remember. You must make sure that you are under the constant protection of the eternal Heaven realms at all times. There are far too many people who are interested in you, so there will definitely be some who are unwilling to see you enter the eternal Heaven Pearl. Xianxia nodded his head. The eternal Heaven-Defying realm. At present, this is the only way you can escape the undercurrent that is flowing around you, and it is also possible that this is the only opportunity for you to obtain the greatest amount of growth in the shortest amount of time. You definitely mustn't waste this opportunity. Fine, I've got it, Xianxia said as he nodded his head again. After that, he suddenly took a step forward and gently pulled Jasmine, who had been giving him warning after warning, into his embrace. Jasmine did not resist, and she surrendered everything that was important to her in front of Xianxia as she gently closed her eyes. Jasmine, Xianxia softly whispered into Jasmine's ear, from the first day that I met you in this place, I was able to detect that your body and heart were being held down by very heavy chains. Jasmine's body unexpectedly shuddered at that. Xianxia did not wait for Jasmine to deny this. He hugged her even tighter as he said, Including the day that you chose to ruthlessly sever all ties to force me to leave, I am firmly convinced that it was not only for my own safety. If not, you clearly could have used many other methods which were far better than that. But don't you worry, I won't probe any further. Jasmine, if it's a burden that even you are having difficulty in dealing with, then even if you told me, given my minuscule and insignificant strength right now, there is no way I could help you. Furthermore, it would also become another chain and burden to hold you down. So, you are very correct. No matter if it is for me or for you, entering the eternal heaven-divine realm is indeed my best choice. After I enter the eternal heaven realm, I won't allow myself any slackness or distraction. And 3 years from now, I will have grown to the point where you will be willing to tell me everything, so that I can break the chains that bind your body together with you. It would be best if I could also protect you, and if I could do it forever. The trembling of the soft and delicate body in his embrace grew more and more acute as a trail of moisture soundlessly flowed down his chest. Xianxia, she softly sobbed into his chest. Why did I have to meet you? Xianxia gave a faint smile as he said, It was probably so that you could marry Keijai to me. Jasmine laughed through her tears as her small hands lightly beat against Xianxia's chest. After that, her eyes grew blurry, as if she could not believe that this kind of thing would happen to her. Xianxia, 3 years from you not only need to protect me, you also need to protect Keijai. If not, I'll never ever forgive you. That's a given. After all, amen. But today you need to be by my side constantly. You're not allowed to go anywhere, nor are you allowed to think of anyone else. If not for the days where you chased me to where Keijai was, I wouldn't even have wanted to take a step away from you. I already said you weren't allowed to think of anyone else, not even Keijai. Understood. But the way you are now makes it seem like we will never be able to meet each other after this. In the distance, a colorful figure bounced vivaciously as she drew near. Keijai seemed to have already regulated her own emotions, and starlight that was even more incandescent than before glowed in her eyes. From a distance, she saw 2 people who hugged each other in silence, and it seemed as if they were unwilling to ever part from each other. Her small hand flashed to her lips like lightning, and after that, she turned around and left on silent feet. It was the 15th day since Xianxia had arrived in the star god realm, and it was also the time for his departure. If he did not leave, he was afraid that the eternal heaven god emperor might just take the initiative and send someone over to fetch him. The day of the moon god emperor's wedding was also today. Even though the star god realm and the moon god realm were far away from each other, but they also had dimensional profound formations which were linked to each other. So there was no need to be worried that he would be late. That old villain is about to leave. HMPH, as expected, he's going to go as well. Jasmine had not handed Xianxia over to the Star God Emperor in advance. On the contrary, she needed to minimize the contact that Xianxia had with the Star God Emperor as much as she possibly could. As she sensed that the Star God Emperor had drawn near to the dimensional profound formation that connected to the eternal heaven realm, Jasmine finally said, Keijai, bring Xianxia over. She could not personally bring Xianxia over. After all, in the eyes of the world, she represented the words cold-blooded and heartless, so Keijai was undoubtedly the better choice. Amen. Keijai brought Xianxia along as she said, Brother-in-law, let's go. Actually, I also have this small desire to see just what the new moon god empress looks like. As her colorful figure shimmered, Keijai had already brought Xianxia to the front of the palace gates. As she watched Xianxia's figure grow smaller in the distance, Jasmine's gaze suddenly grew blurry and an anxious cry that she could not control involuntarily escaped her lips. Wait a moment. She rushed over and tightly hugged Xianxia. Her embrace was very tight indeed. She did not say anything, but her delicate shoulder violently trembled along with her entire body as she hugged him. Ah, Keijai turned around as she stared blankly at her big sister who had lost control of herself. Xianxia lightly held the 2 hands that were wrapped around him as he gave a faint smile. Don't worry, even without the protection of the eternal heaven realm, it won't be so easy to ambush me. 3 years from now, after I leave the eternal heaven-divine realm, I will come and look for you immediately. Jasmine still remained silent, and this continued for a long period of time. After that, her body stopped trembling, and the 2 arms which tightly wrapped around him lost their strength bit by bit until they completely let go. She turned around in order to not let Xianxia see her current appearance before speaking in a very calm voice. Xianxia, remember well every single word that I have spoken to you. You are not allowed to forget a single word. Keijai, you may leave. Ah, oh. Keijai once again led Xianxia forward, but then hesitated before she left together with Xianxia at a very slow speed. Jasmine never turned around during this entire process, and it was only once she sensed that they had left the Star God Palace that she allowed the tears in her eyes to finally drip down her face. Xianxia, goodbye forever. I will always remember that there was a person who was willing to pluck a netherworld Udambara flower for me, that there was a person who was willing to come to the Star God realm for me. In the past, I had spurned and detested destiny so much. But the fact that I could meet you in this life has caused all the resentment to fade away. The Star God Emperor already stood before the dimensional profound formation. The only star god beside him was heavenly origin star god Tumi, and he was only accompanied by 4 star guards. Their formation was exceedingly simple. To the star god realm, the moon god realm was definitely not a great place, so they were absolutely unwilling to give the moon god realm any sort of face. It was absolutely clear that the reason the Star God Emperor was going this time was in order to see for himself just who this mysterious Moon God Empress actually was. To be able to make the Moon God Emperor go so far, nobody doubted that the new Moon God Empress was definitely an extraordinary person. On the other hand, when he had brought Xianxia to the Star God realm, the time limit the eternal Heaven God Emperor had given was 15 days. Yet even though the Star God Emperor was about to depart, he clearly had no intention to bring Xianxia back. Xianxia did not know if this was because he did not want to be refused entrance by Jasmine or if he had some other plans. However, the moment he was about to step into the dimensional profound formation, his eyebrows jumped and he turned around. Keijai descended from the skies at an exceedingly fast speed. After that, she threw Xianxia to the ground in a very rough fashion, while breathing a small sigh of relief at the same time. "Ah, we're still good, we're still good. We were almost late." Xianxia regained his stability in a somewhat pathetic fashion. After that, he paid his respects as soon as possible. Junior Xianxia greets the Star God Emperor and the Heavenly Origin Star God. 2 terrifying gazes swept over Xianxia. "This king actually thought that Jasmine wanted to force you to remain, so I was just thinking about how I should explain this to the eternal Heaven God Emperor." The Star God Emperor spoke in a voice that was neither warm nor cold, and Xianxia could not grasp any sort of mood from it. Keijai immediately became dissatisfied as she said, "HMPH, you don't understand Big Sister at all. If she said it will be 15 days, then it will definitely be 15 days. It won't be a day less, but it won't be a day more either." Jasmine was filled with hatred and resentment towards the Star God Emperor, and it was clear that Keijai did not treat him with much respect either. "Heh, Her Highness Jasmine's temperament has always been like this," Tumi said with a chuckle. At the same time, he shot a look filled with meaning at the Star God Emperor. "Xianxia," the Star God Emperor was still looking at Xianxia, and that gaze which could pierce the sun and moon seemed to be looking for something on his person. "How did your training in the Star God Broken Shadow technique go?" Xianxia immediately replied, "The Star God Broken Shadow technique is indeed the pinnacle of all movement skills in this universe. Its marvelousness exceeds the rumors. This junior was lucky enough to have the Heavenly Slaughter Star God personally impart it to me. However, the duration was too short and my own talent is limited, so I was only able to grasp the basic concepts. But that has already filled me with the greatest satisfaction." "Then that's good." The Star God Emperor gave a calm nod of his head. "Besides the Star God Broken Shadow technique, did you gain anything else?" Xianxia spoke without a shred of hesitation or any attempt to dodge the subject. "This junior was also fortunate enough to have Her Highness Keijai impart the Heavenly Wolf Hell God's tome to me." Once he said those words, only ripples appeared in the eyes of the Star God Emperor and Tumi, but the expressions of the 4 great star guards who were accompanying them changed dramatically as shock clearly showed in their eyes. "Keijai, did you truly teach Xianxia the Heavenly Wolf Hell God's tome?" The Star God Emperor's brows furrowed slightly while his voice grew several octaves deeper. "That's right." The expression on Keijai's face indicated that she was not at all bothered by that question. It was as if she had done a simple, ordinary, everyday thing as she replied, "Big Sis asked me to teach him, so I taught him, of course. However, Big Brother Xianxia truly deserves to be called the Child of the Heavens. I had originally thought that he would definitely not be able to learn it because he did not possess the Heavenly Wolf's divine power. But who would have thought that he not only learned it, but learned it exceedingly quickly as well? No wonder Big Sis was willing to let him stay in the Star God Palace for so many days." Upon hearing Keijai say the four words, "Big Brother Yun-Chi," in that charming voice of hers, Yun-Chi felt a sense of awkwardness pervade his entire body. Could it be that he had gotten used to her calling him brother-in-law by now? The Star God Emperor gave Keijai a level look before he turned his gaze back towards Yun-Chi. After a short period of silence, he asked, "Since Jasmine asked Keijai to teach you the heavenly wolf hell god's tome, then did she also ask you and Keijai to?" "My king, the time draws near, we had better head off a bit earlier." Heavenly Origin Star God Tumi suddenly spoke, cutting the Star God Emperor off. At the same time, he gave an extremely minuscule shake of his head. A weird and complicated light flashed in the Star God Emperor's eyes, but after that he turned around and did not pursue his previous line of questioning. "That's fine as well, let us go then." "Ah!" Keijai felt a light sense of surprise blossom in her heart. Yun-Chi's eyebrows twitched as he grew puzzled. According to Jasmine's own words, she had already told the Star God Emperor that she was going to betroth Keijai to Yun-Chi, no matter whether he agreed to it or not. Yun-Chi had also thought out his answers to the Star God Emperor's questions well in advance. But such a huge affair had happened, and he was actually not going to ask about it all. The interruption of the Heavenly Origin Star God had clearly been deliberate so as to cut those words off and not allow the Star God Emperor to continue talking about this matter. The Star God Emperor had only hesitated for a moment, and he did not ask any more questions after that. What was going on? No matter what angle you looked at it from, this was something that definitely should not occur. In any case, Yun-Chi was the child of the heavens that the various great king realms had tried to attract to their sides, and even the goddess herself desired his hand in marriage. So the most normal response of the Star God Emperor would be to use this matter to persuade him to remain in the Star God realm. Why did he forcibly avoid it instead? Could it be that he felt like the time was not right? As Yun-Chi mused about this, they had already stepped into the dimensional profound formation, and a cluster of white light immediately engulfed Yun-Chi within. In the last moment before the white light dissipated, Yun-Chi gave Keijai a warm and light smile, as if he was saying goodbye. To him, the next time they would meet would be 3,000 years from now. A dimensional profound formation forged using the power of a king realm was naturally extraordinary. So even though the Star God realm was far away from the eternal heaven realm, the dimensional teleportation only lasted a few short breaths. After the white light had dissipated, the dense spiritual energy belonging to the eternal heaven realm rushed in to meet them. Yun-Chi raised his head and looked toward the eternal heaven tower which soared into the heavens, his heart overcome by a momentary melancholy. After he returned to the eternal heaven God realm once more, he would be entering the eternal Heaven-Divine realm. Both of his lives added together was merely 60 years of time. But after he entered the eternal Heaven-Divine realm, he would be immersed in cultivation for an entire 3,000 years, and he would also be separated from this world for a whole 3 years while doing that. 3,000 years. He also could not anticipate what sort of changes would occur to his beliefs or mental state after 3,000 years, and neither did he know if the him at that time would be the same as the current him. As he put away his melancholy, he thought about every word that Jasmine had said, and his thoughts and gaze recovered their resoluteness. Given the current scenario he was facing, this was indeed be his best and perhaps only choice. It was not only for the present, but it was even more so for the future. The dimensional profound formation had sent them to the outskirts of the eternal heaven realm. The Star God Emperor led the way, his steps slow and measured. But even until the moment when they stepped past the eternal heaven realm's protective barrier and into the domain of the eternal heaven realm, he had not asked Yun-Chi a single thing. After they entered the eternal heaven realm, the Star God Emperor came to a stop and finally turned around and spoke. "Yun-Chi, the moment we entered this realm, the eternal heaven God Emperor was already aware that you had returned to his realm. As one of the 1,000 heaven-chosen children, you have the qualifications to participate in the Moon God Emperor's wedding celebration. However, this time the Moon God Emperor, that old fellow, invited so many people, so your Snow Song realm should also have received the invitation. Are you prepared to follow the eternal heaven realm or follow your own sect?" Yun-Chi did not hesitate as he gave his reply. "This junior intends to accompany his own sect there." "That's fine as well." The Star God Emperor nodded his head. "Xingling, escort Yun-Chi back to where the Snow Song realm is residing." "Yes," Xingling said as he received the order. The Star God Emperor did not continue speaking. He merely left along with Tumi and the other 3 star guards. Yun-Chi was crowned with the mantle of the Child of Heavens, and also had countless other world-shocking halos adorning his head. So he definitely could not be treated purely as a young, profound practitioner who came from a middle star realm. Even though the Star God Emperor treated Yun-Chi with a rather strange detachedness, he still gave him great face. He had personally instructed a Star Guard, and it was the head of the Star Guards at that, to personally escort him back. "Brother Xingling, we meet again." Now that the Star God Emperor had left his side, Yun-Chi felt the pressure on him lessen dramatically, and he smiled as he greeted Xingling. However, suspicion rose in his heart yet again. Xingling was the chief of Jasmine's Star Guards, but it seemed like the Star God Emperor liked to bring him along whenever he traveled. He had brought him along when they participated in the Profound God Convention, and this time, when they were traveling to the Moon God realm, he had only brought 4 Star Guards with him, and Xingling was once again included among them. However, this suspicion merely lasted for an instant, and Yun-Chi did not take it to heart. Xingling gave Yun-Chi a graceful and courteous bow. "Sir Yun, please." After returning to the eternal Heaven God realm, Yun-Chi's mental state and goals were completely different. The two men walked side by side as they moved towards where the Snow Song realm was staying. After he had hesitated for a long period of time, Xingling finally could not help but asking, "Sir Yun, did Her Highness Keiji truly impart you the heavenly Wolf-Hell God's tome?" After the question had escaped his lips, Xingling immediately said in a very apologetic voice, "My humble self was merely shocked and amazed at this news. If I have offended you in any way, I beg for Sir Yun's forgiveness." Yun-Chi smiled as he shook his head. "Brother Xingling, you don't need to go to such an extent. Of course this matter is true. I mean, how could I dare to trick or hide something like this from the Star God Emperor?" Xingling gave an admiring sigh as he said, "The divine tomes of the various Lord Star Gods are forbidden from being imparted to outsiders. To think that Sir Yun would be bestowed with such great favor, this truly causes me to gasp in amazement. Furthermore, when my humble self observed the Lord Star God Emperor, he did not seem unhappy about this at all." Yun-Chi gave a mild laugh, but he did not confirm or deny anything. Xingling looked at him and continued to exclaim in admiration, "The whole world knows that Sir Yun is the child of the heavens, who was chosen by the heavens themselves, someone who has been baptized by 9 tribulations, a phenomenon that has never been seen up to this day. For my Lord Star God Emperor and Her Highness Keiji to be willing to go this far for Sir Yun is something that perhaps isn't actually too strange." "Ha ha ha." Yun-Chi gave a dry chuckle before changing the subject. "Brother Xingling, why did the Star God Emperor choose to bring such a small entourage when he decided to go to the Moon God realm to attend the impending wedding celebrations?" Xingling gave a bitter laugh as he replied, "Even though Sir Yun has been in the God realm for such a short period of time, you should also have heard of the grievances that exist between our two realms. This time, if not for the fact that the Lord Star God Emperor was exceedingly curious about the Moon God realm's new Moon God Empress, perhaps he might not have personally attended." "Ah, so that's how it is." As the two men chatted, they had already arrived at where the Snow Song realm was being housed. During the half-month that Yun-Chi had stayed at the Star God realm, it seemed that the Snow Song realm had not left and had stayed in the Eternal Heaven realm as well. The Moon God Emperor had invited nearly the entire Eastern Divine region to attend his wedding celebration this time, so it was clear that he also borrowed the impetus that drove this Profound God Convention to do so. Yun-Chi bid Xingling farewell before landing within the courtyard. "Palace Master Bingyun and the gathered elders, disciple Yun-Chi has returned." Mu Bingyun, Mu Huanji, and the rest of the Ice Phoenix elders and palace masters were here, and all of the disciples that had accompanied them were also present. So it was clear that they were presently preparing to travel to the Moon God realm as well. Upon seeing that Yun-Chi had returned, Mu Bingyun felt her heart relax. Her icy eyes measured her as a faint smile seemed to grace her lips. "Ah, you've returned just in time. Furthermore, upon seeing your current appearance, it looks like you've finally fulfilled your heart's desire." Yun-Chi smiled as he said, "Not only did I obtain what my heart desired, I even got a very unexpected reward." His words were filled with gratefulness, because he had finally fulfilled his wish to meet Jasmine and had even sworn an eternal vow with her. All of this was something that was due in large part to Mu Bingyun. The first step he took into the God realm was also due to Mu Bingyun bringing him over. "Oh, an unexpected reward? It's not that important," Yun-Chi said with some embarrassment. The unexpected reward he was talking about was actually Xianxia, and he did not know why those words had slipped out of his mouth either. As he saw the many elders and disciples in the background, Xianxia said in a very soft voice, "Could it be that all of us are allowed to go to the moon god realm?" "That's right," Mu Bingyun said with a nod of her head. "It looks like the moon god emperor is in rather high spirits right now. Not only did he invite nearly the entire eastern divine region, he did not limit the number of guests either. So everyone who was present in the eternal heaven realm has been allowed to go to the moon god realm." Xianxia was rendered rather speechless by those words. So the moon god emperor is hellbent on making this wedding celebration as ostentatious as possible. We don't even know what kind of personage this new god empress is, but even if it is a woman like the dragon queen or the goddess, it should not cause the moon god emperor to go to such lengths, correct? What happened to Yue Wugu all those years ago caused the moon god emperor to suffer extreme disgrace. So it is clear that he is trying to get that back many times over. As for what kind of personage that god empress is, we will know today. He had sent those wedding invitations 3 years ago, causing a great uproar to occur in the eastern divine region. 3 years had passed, and not only had the moon god emperor not tried to calm the furor that this wedding celebration had created, he even tried to make the occasion grander and grander. Furthermore, to this date, the identity of this god empress was still a mystery to everyone. So this also undoubtedly aroused a great curiosity in everyone as well. In the distance, a white-colored pillar of light rushed towards the sky. Mu Bingyun lifted her eyes towards that pillar of light and said, "The dimensional profound formation has been activated. Let's leave." Mu Huanji nodded his head before turning around as he said, "This might be the only chance in your lives to go to the moon god realm. Be careful with your words and actions, and don't do anything improper. Otherwise, even the sect master won't be able to save you fellows." All the disciples of the Divine Ice Phoenix sect voiced their acknowledgement as their faces beamed with excitement that they were unable to conceal. A king realm was similar to the celestial palace to them, a place they could never reach no matter how much they longed for it. However, not only were they lucky enough to enter the eternal heaven realm because of the profound god convention, they had also been invited to the moon god realm. They were simply too fortunate. "Will Master go there?" Xianxia asked in a low voice. Mu Bingyun replied, "Your master avoided the profound god convention because she didn't want to expose her current cultivation. Naturally, she won't be entering the moon god realm either." Xianxia revealed disappointment as he said in a low voice, "Unknowingly, such a long time has passed since we left the sect, and I'm missing Master a bit. Once I enter the eternal heaven pearl, I won't be able to see Master for next 3,000 years. Mu Bingyun glanced at him, with her icy eyes filled with a complicated expression. But soon after, she was taken aback all of a sudden. "Did you just say you're going to enter the eternal heaven pearl?" "Amen," Xianxia nodded in affirmation. "She gave me a warning. The sensation I caused during the conferred god battle is a lot more serious than I can imagine. Given my present situation, it's no longer a question of whether I want to enter the eternal heaven pearl. There's already no other choice left for me." Mu Bingyun remained silent for a short while before nodding her head. "She is right, and your master will certainly approve of this decision too. As for the people in your homeland," since Mu Bingyun was the one who had brought Xianxia to the god realm, she was naturally aware of the 5-year promise that he had made with the little demon empress and others. She pondered for a moment before saying in a soft voice, "I'll think of a way to let them know your delay in return." There were pillars of light shining in the distance, as the event in question was none other than the world-alarming wedding ceremony of the moon god realm. The number of dimensional teleportation formations that were set up was also numerous. But although the starting point of the teleportation was from the eternal heaven god realm, it was naturally the moon god realm that was providing the energy resources required for the dimensional teleportation formations to work. The moon god realm might be a king realm, but it still cost a lot to maintain such large-scale teleportation formations. Without having to wait for long, the crowd from the Snow Song realm followed Mu Huanji into one of the dimensional profound formations, after which they were teleported to the other king realm of the eastern divine region. Furthermore, it wasn't the periphery of the moon god realm where they were teleported, but a teleportation to the moon god realm itself. They had appeared right before the royal city, the core region of the moon god realm, Divine Moon City. Each king realm had its own distinct aura, but all of them contained an incomparably rich and pure spirit energy. No ordinary star realm could possibly compare to them. Standing before the divine moon city, and looking at the immensely high and gigantic gate of the city entrance that was emitting bright moonlight, countless profound practitioners of the eastern divine region were standing dumbfounded in place, extreme shock in their hearts. Compared to the star god realm and the eternal heaven god realm that Xianxia had been to so far, the brightness of light was clearly somewhat low in the moon god realm. But it actually made the bright moonlight around all the buildings appear even more divine and eye-catching. The road beneath their feet was also paved with moonlight stones, which made one feel as if they were walking in an illusory region of light with every step taken. There were numerous bright starlights flitting around inside the world of the moon god realm, and in the moon god realm, it seemed as if the whole place was eternally bathing in the purest and brightest moonlight. The first-time visitors would subconsciously think that they had stepped into a mysterious, illusory realm. So this is the moon god realm. Xianxia also couldn't help but sigh in admiration. It's simply as if we have arrived in the world of a different plane. The moon god realm believes in the power of divine moon, and the most important factor behind it managing to join the ranks of king realms is the fact they can inherit the power of the divine moon, Mu Bingyun told Xianxia. Xianxia said, "When I was in the star god realm, I heard her mention that the star god realm believes in the power of the stars, and the most important point is that they can inherit the power of star gods. Both the star god realm and the moon god realm are quite alike." It was only natural for Jasmine to disagree to come participate in this wedding ceremony. She had lost her mother because of the moon god realm. It was also due to this reason that Jasmine had always harbored a deep hatred against the moon god realm. There are far more similarities between the star god realm and the moon god realm. The two realms are almost the same in so many aspects. Xianxia, Mu Bingyun explained, according to the records, the titles of moon god and star god were conferred by the creation god, heaven-punishing divine Emperor Moe. There were a total of 12 star and moon gods each, all of whom were subordinates to him. In the era of gods, all of them had an extremely high standing, and the divine powers left behind by them are naturally extremely powerful as well. Moreover, they can be inherited generation after generation by the compatible vessels. It was Xianxia's first time hearing about such things. The star god emperor is a star god, and the moon god emperor is similarly a moon god. All star gods have their star guards, and every moon god also has their moon guards. The replacement of the star and moon gods, as well as the patterns and methods of inheriting their powers, are also exactly the same. In other words, besides the difference in their core energy, one having power of star god and another power of moon god, there was simply no difference between them. Despite having so many similarities, let alone being deeply attached to each other like real brothers, they have actually become mortal enemies. Xianxia shook his head, as he seemed to be sighing. The energy and structure of the two realms might be similar, but it is impossible for a person's heart to forever remain the same. People like us are not in the position to discuss and appraise the strife between high-level existences such as king realms, Mu Bingyun said, in an indifferent tone. "Let's enter the city." Just as Mu Bingyun finished her words, the place before their eyes brightened up. A layer of misty light sprinkled down from somewhere, covering the whole world in the clear and bright light of the moon. Xianxia raised his head subconsciously, and it was also at this moment that loud cries of surprise echoes around him which didn't disappear for a long while. At some point in time, a shining and white moon had appeared in the distant sky. It was located in the sky that was right over the divine moon city, and its light was pale, dense, and gentle. The way it illuminated the entire divine moon city made it seem as if it was an illusory city in moonlight, the kind you would only see in dreams. "Divine moon in the sky, it's actually the divine moon in the sky." Xianxia heard countless similar shouts of surprise. Mu Bingyun beside him also whispered in a very light voice as she looked at the moon in the sky. "Divine moon in the sky." "What is divine moon in the sky?" Xianxia asked. The divine moon in the sky was constantly rising little by little, but its rays of light showed no signs of weakening due to it, and instead became stronger and stronger. Under the effect of the divine moon, the whole world appeared to be mysterious and illusory. Xianxia didn't know that the light of this divine moon did not only enshrouded the divine moon city. Tens of millions of kilometer star region around it was bathing in the light of the divine moon as well. All the nearby star realms had also begun to sense the change in the brightness of light. When the people of these star realms raised their heads to look above, They could see the divine moon in the sky at a glance. Gradually, people from almost every star realm and every corner of the eastern divine region could see a divine moon hanging high in the direction of the moon god realm, emitting brighter and dreamier moonlight than a genuine moon. It seemed as if it was announcing the soon-to-be-held grand event of the moon god realm to the eastern divine region, or even the whole god realm. This phenomenon of divine moon in the sky has only happened 2 times so far in the history. Mu Bingyun turned her eyes away from the divine moon before she told Yun Qi in a low tone of voice. The first time was when the moon god realm came into existence. The second time was when the moon god realm announced becoming a king realm of the eastern divine region. This is the third time. Yun Qi's eyes shifted as surprise surfaced on his face. The light of this divine moon can enshroud the whole eastern divine region, and needs the combined effort of the 12 moon gods to do so. Going by the records, it's only when some great event happens that is related to the turning point of fate in the moon god realm that the divine moon makes its appearance, to make the event known across the world. It was the same case when the divine moon in the sky phenomenon occurred twice before. But it's surprising for the divine moon in the sky to occur today, on the day of the wedding ceremony of the moon god emperor. The look in Mu Bingyun's eyes became serious. This wedding ceremony has been extremely high profile from the beginning, and people have formed countless opinions on it. But now it seems that it's going to be even more extraordinary than what everyone expected earlier. The reason behind this all is undoubtedly that mysterious god empress that has never made a public appearance. The moon god emperor is really dying to let the living beings of the whole world know that he is marrying this new god empress, huh? Yun Qi was at a loss for words. There is more to it, Mu Bingyun said. If the divine moon in the sky phenomenon only appears when the moon god realm experiences an important turning point in its fate, this new moon god empress is. Mu Bingyun didn't continue to speak any further, and instead fell into a deep silence. After all, even she had no idea how a woman could actually bring such a change in the fate of the moon god realm. A king realm of the eastern divine region, that it even required them to make it known to the whole world through the divine moon in the sky. Even if the moon god realm was marrying the dragon empress or the goddess, and even if the 2 of them were going to be his god empresses, this phenomenon would still absolutely not have appeared. The atmosphere of the surroundings grew heavy, and all the profound practitioners of the eastern divine region that were teleported here stopped in place. Watching the divine moon in the sky, they felt doubtful and shocked in their hearts like Mu Bingyun, and even forgot to step inside the divine moon city that was right before their eyes. Now even I become curious about this moon god empress. As someone who had only been in the god realm for 3 years, and hence had almost no knowledge of or interest in the moon god realm, Yun Qi could be considered the calmest of all upon seeing the divine moon in the sky phenomenon. He casually made a wild guess. Palace Master Bingyun, is there a woman among the realm kings of the king realms in the god realm? Could the moon god emperor be marrying another realm king of some king realm? The marriage of 2 god emperors should be considered a great event that could change the fate of a king realm. We'll get to know about it very soon, Mu Bingyun replied. Let's go inside now. Great Elder, I'll trouble you with taking care of the safety of the disciples. This is the moon god realm, not any ordinary place. Mu Xuanian had entrusted Mu Bingyun with the task to always take good care of Yun Qi alone. Divine Moon City wasn't that big, but as the core city of a king realm, it was a sacred place among the sacred places of the god realm. Walking inside the city, even the king of a realm, who should have experienced countless trials and changes in their life, would subconsciously slow their pace and restrain their breathing. Not to mention the young, profound practitioners who had never harbored the extravagant hope of being able to enter the moon god realm. All the disciples from the Snow Song realm closely followed behind the several elders and palace masters. They were continuously looking around, feeling excited as well as afraid. In the Snow Song realm, they were the elite disciples of the divine Ice Phoenix sect that all the profound practitioners looked up to and admired immensely. But they were very clear that getting to enter the divine moon city, or even breathing in the air here, was like a heavenly gift to them. Bathing in the light of the divine moon, the group from the Snow Song realm had arrived at the place where the wedding ceremony was planned to be held. At the forefront were 2 people that were dressed in similar-looking silver, light armor, who were welcoming the guests. The indifferent look in their eyes, however, gave off a frightening and dominating feeling. When their eyes swept over the group, The intimidating pressure they released unintentionally was so terrifying that it caused the entire body of the disciples from Snow Song Realm to stiffen at once, and the flow of blood in their bodies almost came to a stop. "These two people are moon guards of the Moon God Realm," Mu Bingyun said in a low voice. Moon guards were subordinates to the great moon gods or moon god envoys. Although they were only bodyguards, they had an extremely high standing. They were only inferior to that of the great moon gods and moon god envoys, and equivalent to the standing of the star guards in the star god realm. Those who could become star guards had the strength of the divine king realm at the least, which was similar to that of a king of a lower realm. The high-level guards who could closely serve at the side of the great moon gods were all at the divine sovereign realm. Any one of them was comparable to the realm king of a middle star realm. This showed how terrifying a king realm was in reality. Given the status of the moon god emperor, it was naturally impossible for him to personally welcome the guests. Dispatching 2 great moon guards for this purpose was already enough to make the absolute majority of profound practitioners tremble with fear, or even feel extremely flattered. Mu Bingyun stepped forward and slightly greeted with a bow, before she handed the invitation card and the congratulatory gift over to the 2 great moon guards. The moon guards received the congratulatory gift. There was no change in their expressions as their divine sense swept over the invitation card. "We welcome the esteemed guests from Snow Song. Please make yourselves comfortable inside." When the people from the king realms and upper realms arrived, the moon guards would announce it in a loud voice, and an attendant would specially guide them inside. The guests from king realms were brought inside the main hall, and the moon god emperor would personally welcome them in front of the main hall, while the guests from upper star realms were brought inside the outer hall, where there were 2 moon god envoys to welcome them. As for the guests from the middle and lower star realms, since even their arrival was not being announced, it was impossible for them to be brought inside the main hall or outer hall, either. They could only take seats that were arranged outside the outer hall. Despite such incomparably obvious difference in treatment, no one felt dissatisfied in their heart or complain in resentment. It was because the strong had the qualification to enjoy the treatment they deserved, and the weak should put up with the treatment they received. It was the most basic law of survival in every level of place in the God realm. Mu Bingyun slightly nodded her head as she led the people from the Snow Song realm inside. It was at this time that one of the moon guards suddenly raised his brows. "Snow Song realm. Wait a minute." The moon guard turned to the group as he said with a slightly hurried voice. His gaze directly fell upon Yun Qi. "Could this be Sir Yun Qi?" Yun Qi turned around and nodded in acknowledgement. "This humble one is indeed called so. Do you have any instructions for me?" Having confirmed his identity, the 2 moon guards who had been acting indifferently so far promptly took a step forward and deeply bowed. "Lord God Emperor has personally instructed that Sir Yun is to be treated as an honored guest and be brought inside the main hall." The seating area in the main hall was for the most privileged ones, where only those from the king realms were allowed to sit. Even the guests from the upper star realms didn't have the qualifications to go in there. Everyone from the Snow Song realm were taken aback at the sudden development. But soon after, they didn't feel too much surprise in their hearts and instead found it only natural. It was because Yun Qi was definitely not an ordinary disciple of the Snow Song realm now. His glorious performance in the conferred god battle had intensely stimulated the entire god realm. Not only the god emperors, but even the dragon monarch himself had a strong desire to rope him in. It would be absolutely reasonable for someone like him to receive such preferential treatment from the moon god realm. But to everyone's surprise, Yun Qi shook his head in a clear display of refusal as he said apologetically, "I'm quite thankful to the moon god emperor and the 2 of you for your kind intentions. But as this humble one is a disciple from the Snow Song realm, I should sit together with the other people of my sect." The 2 moon guards revealed astonishment, but they didn't insist any further. "In that case, we'll respect Sir Yun's wish. If Sir Yun has any instructions for us, please feel free to let us know without any reservations. Please enter." The members from the Snow Song realm also felt honored by the change in their attitude and their respectful tone of voice. Looking at Yun Qi beside Mu Bingyun, who was standing in the front, all of them deeply sighed with emotion in their hearts. He was not in the least eye-catching when he had just entered the sect 3 years ago, but now he had reached such heights that he had already surpassed everyone from the sect, and even the Snow Song realm. He alone had become the greatest glory of the Snow Song realm. "Brother Yun, over here!" The moment he entered the place, he heard Huo Poyun's joyful shout. Those from the Flame God Ream had already settled down in their places, and only Huo Ruli, Yan Jiuhai, and Huo Poyun sitting at the main table. The relationship between the Snow Song realm and the Flame God realm had subtly changed after the conferred God battle because of the fact that Yun Qi possessed the powers of both the Golden Crow and the Phoenix. Yun Qi didn't show any reservation and headed towards them with Mu Bingyun and Mu Huanji as they sat at the same main table. Looking around them, the place was already packed with several million people. The two parties greeted each other, after which Huo Poyun asked impatiently, "Brother Yun, what kind of place is the Star God realm? Does it also seem illusory like the Moon God realm?" Yun Qi nodded his head. "Moon God realm is enshrouded with moonlight, and the sky of the Star God realm is fully covered with stars. Thinking about it now, it certainly gives off an illusory feeling, too. Then, have you learned Star God's broken shadow? Amen, I've attained some success in its practice. Did the Heavenly Slaughter Star God really teach you personally? How does the Heavenly Slaughter Star God look? It is said that she is super fearsome. Were you, all right staying over there? The Heavenly Slaughter Star God is not as fearsome as the rumors say. But I heard that during the second year after she inherited the divine power, the Heavenly Slaughter Star God massacred tens of thousands of people in one of the star regions of the Moon God realm, and after that, cough, cough, don't presumptuously discuss the affairs between king realms." Huo Ruli cut off Huo Poyun's words with a low voice. "This place is the Moon God realm, you know." "Understood." Huo Poyun stopped speaking any further. Listening to the talk between Yun Qi and Huo Poyun, Mu Bingyun slightly raised the corner of her lips. There was no one who knew or would believe the extremely deep bond between the Heavenly Slaughter Star God and Yun Qi. It was even more difficult to believe that, when he was still just a 10-odd-year-old boy in the lower realms, Yun Qi had accompanied this star god, who was so feared in the god realm, day and night. "Yun Qi," Yan Jiuhai called out, as he said in a very low but serious tone of voice. "There's something that I still don't get. The goddess may be the most beautiful woman in the universe, but if you were to be close to her, it would cause countless people to hate you out of jealousy. Therefore, you refusing the proposal of the Brahma Heaven God Emperor might be the right choice. Why would you refuse the Dragon Emperor and the Eternal Heaven God Emperor, though? This junior has his own considerations for choosing to do so." Yun Qi also replied in a serious voice. Due to the connection of the Phoenix Flame, Yan Jiuhai had subconsciously begun to feel closer to Yun Qi now. He said as he looked at Yun Qi, "Although I don't know the reason behind your choice, you absolutely must not underestimate the effect of the sensation you caused during the conferred God battle. It'd be even more unwise to underestimate the meaning of being favored by these God Emperors. You may not be aware of this, but there has never been a youngster that has stood out as much as you, even when considering the entire history of the God realm." Yan Jiuhai sounded as if he was exaggerating things, but no one revealed astonishment on their face. It was because all of them knew that he had spoken the truth. "It might make you guys uncomfortable for me to say this, but Yun Qi is no longer in existence that the Snow Song realm can have. Yun Qi, you are an ownerless individual in the eyes of a lot of people. I believe you're well aware of what would happen if the shiniest pearl since time immemorial were to appear without any owner. The Snow Song realm cannot keep you safe, and it's even more impossible for you to protect yourself. The thing you need the most right now is to have a powerful enough backing or be affiliated to such a party." There was quite similarity between Yan Jiuhai's words and Jasmine's warning to him. Huo Ruli also nodded slowly. "Be it becoming the direct disciple of the Eternal Heaven God Emperor or becoming the adopted son of the Dragon Monarch, both of them are absolutely good choices." No one from the Snow Song realm side said anything in rebuttal. They say that treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime, and having such a person as Yun Qi was such a monstrous crime that it would cause a sensation across the entire God realm. Yun Qi nodded his head as he said in a very calm manner, "I thank both sect masters for the advice. This junior is going to enter the Eternal Heaven Divine realm for now, and will plan what to do after leaving the Eternal Heaven Pearl." Amen. Having said their piece, Huo Ruli and Yan Jiuhai didn't say anything more on the matter. Looking at Yun Qi first before shifting his gaze to Huo Poyun, Huo Ruli let out a long sigh in his heart. The two of them were close in age, but Huo Poyun almost had his conviction quashed after suffering crushing defeat during the conferred God battle. On the other hand, despite the fact that Yun Qi was continuously in limelight and also had an unimaginably huge pressure on him, he was calm like an old monk. Moreover, even if their strength was not taken into consideration, there was still a world of difference between their mental states. More and more guests arrived, and the enormous outer seating area was accommodating all the visitors from the middle star realms and the lower star realms. But there was no doubt that the place that was getting the most attention was where the Snow Song realm and the Flame God realm were seated. It was because there was no one in the Eastern Divine region who didn't know of the name Snow Song realm now. Due to Huo Poyan, and even more because of Yun Qi, the Flame God realm had also become quite well known. Especially, the Golden Crow Flame and the Phoenix Flame had once again made everyone aware of the might of divine flames on the conferred God state. On the contrary, only a few remembered the Vermilion Bird Flame, which was the strongest of the three divine flames. Besides, the only two people from the Middle Star realms who had successfully entered the conferred God battle were from the Snow Song realm and the Flame God realm. Furthermore, Yun Qi had also become the pride of all the young, profound practitioners of the Middle and Lower Star realms. It was due to him thoroughly ending the monopoly of the Upper Star realms when it came to the conferred God battle. It made them feel an unprecedented level of elatedness. Countless ambiguous or blazing gazes were focused towards the two star realms, containing various emotions like envy, reverence, admiration, and of course, jealousy as well. There was no doubt that most of these gazes were directed towards Yun Qi. Flying Star Realm has arrived. Divine Martial Realm has arrived. Origin Spirit Great Realm has arrived. Glazed Light Realm has arrived. Only those from the King Realms and the Upper Star Realms could have their arrival announced by the Moon Guards. As the sky shook with their voices, the group from Glazed Light Realm swiftly arrived, with blue light faintly overflowing in the surroundings. In the forefront was naturally the Glazed Light Realm King, Shui Qianheng. Behind him, Yun Qi could see Shui Yingyu, Shui Yinghen, as well as Shui Meiyan, who was dressed in a black skirt and possessed enchanting, black eyes. Almost at the same instant Yun Qi looked at them, Shui Meiyan's eyes came into contact with Yun Qi's without the slightest deviation or delay, which made her slightly curve her brows. She called out in a crisp and sharp voice, "Big brother Yun Qi!" The lovely shout greatly numbed the bones of those who heard it. Shui Qianheng turned his gaze, before heading straight over to Yun Qi's side with big strides like a streaming star. Who was Shui Qianheng? He was the ruler of one of the three giants among the Upper Star Realms. He was such a transcendent existence that these people from Middle and Lower Star Realms didn't even have the qualifications to call him daddy. Upon his arrival, all the profound practitioners hurriedly got up from their seats to pay their respects. But he didn't so much as glance at them and walked over to Yun Qi as he shortened the distance between them with great strides. Before Yun Qi could show any reaction, he grandly patted his shoulder. "Ha ha ha, my worthy son-in-law, I see that you've already arrived here. I needlessly spent so much time looking for you in the eternal Heaven God realm." Yun Qi was about to bow to him as a junior, when his ears buzzed with his mind-tingling, loud laughter. Afterwards, he almost spit on Shui Qingheng's face upon hearing the term he had used to address him. My worthy son-in-law." All the people who had stood up to greet him, like Yan Juhai, Mu Huanji, and the rest, had dumbstruck looks on their faces. Senior Shui." Yun Qi somehow managed to get his greeting out. Shui Qianheng raised his brows as he said in a dissatisfied manner, "Ha, what do you mean by Senior Shui? Why are you acting so distant? Just call me father-in-law." Yun Qi, at number %, Shui Meiyan's face became red. She said in a bashful and timid manner, "Daddy, I've not married big brother Yun Qi yet, you know." Shui Qianheng grandly waved his hand. "In any case, it's going to happen sooner or later, so it doesn't matter even if we start addressing each other in such a manner before the marriage. I was even willing to give up on the divine water of absolute beginning, so there's no way I'd not acknowledge such a good son-in-law." Shui Qianheng said the 5 words, "divine water of absolute beginning," in a very heavy voice, as if he was worried that the people in the surroundings would not be able to hear them. 3 black lines surfaced on the forehead of everyone from the Snow Song realm. They clearly remembered how he was so furious because of the matter concerning Shui Meiyan back then that he was dying to slap Yun Qi dead. Then and there. Such a change in his attitude was really a bit too excessive. Furthermore, how the heck does it have anything to do with you, Shui Qianheng? It was Shui Meiyan who stole it without caring about the consequences, and then Shui Yinghen who brought it over stealthily while trembling with fear. If it was discovered by Shui Qianheng at the time, Shui Meiyin would have been fine, no matter how great of a mistake she had committed. But as for Shui Yinghen, even breaking his legs would have been considered a light punishment. Shui Yinghen's teeth clattered and the corner of his mouth twitched before he asked Shui Yingyu in a low voice, "Has our royal father always been so shameless?" Shui Yingyu nodded her head. Other people wouldn't even dare to harbor the extravagant wish of becoming Shui Qianheng's son-in-law, no matter how many times they were born. But at this moment, everyone could see that Shui Qianheng was proactively clinging to Yun Qi without any regard for his reputation. Looking at his attitude, let alone his younger daughter that he pampered the most, if Yun Qi asked for both of his daughters, he would still absolutely not be displeased by it, and might even do it while grinning from ear to ear. It was because the other party was none other than Yun Qi, the child of the heavens, that even the Brahma heaven god emperor wanted to be his son-in-law. Yun Qi was not able to agree or disagree with him in such a situation, so he could only let out a dry laugh in response. "My worthy son-in-law, you should be preparing to enter the eternal heaven pearl after participating in this wedding ceremony." Shui Qianheng's tone was quite high, as if he totally didn't care about other people listening to his words. Although it's said that everyone will have a small world of their own upon entering, so long as the other party allows entry, it is possible to enter the small world of someone else. You and Meiyin need to take care of and support each other. In this way, your growth will certainly be much faster than usual, and you can deepen the feelings between you two as well. When you come out of the eternal Heaven-Defying realm 3 years later, this king will immediately hold the wedding ceremony for you two. I think that would be an even better time for you two to get married, ha ha ha. Hee, father is so nice. Shui Meiyin's fine brows curved like crescent moons. Ah ha ha ha. Yun Qi continued to laugh dryly. Shui Yinghen stretched open his 5 fingers as he face-palmed with force. "A grand event of the Moon God realm is going to be held today, so I'll stop here for now. Tomorrow, we father-in-law and son-in-law will have a good chat over a cup of tea, ha 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 ha." After laughing aloud once again, Shui Qianheng finally let go Yun Qi and walked away in large strides. "Big brother Yun Qi," Shui Meiyin called out in a very light voice. She waved her hand towards him and stuck out her charming tongue as she followed behind Shui Qianheng. As if he was ashamed to see people, Shui Yinghen also fled in a hurried and panicked manner, without even bidding his farewell to Yun Qi. "Ha!" Yun Qi let out a long breath in relaxation. He had just sat down when he suddenly heard Shui Qianheng's voice beside his ear. "You need to stay in the eternal heaven god realm before entering the eternal heaven pearl. Do not go anywhere else. I'll also be staying in the eternal heaven god realm until you and Meiyin enter the eternal heaven pearl. There are definitely people out there who don't hope to see you entering the eternal heaven pearl. So you must be careful. You need to be especially careful of the Brahma monarch goddess." Yun Qi turned his head in the direction of Shui Qianheng, only to discover that he had already gone so far away that even his silhouette couldn't be seen. "You're truly born to get involved in love affairs. It was so in the lower realms, and the same thing is happening here too." Mu Bingyun shook her head lightly. As Mu Xunian's silhouette flashed through her mind, she let out a sigh inwardly, and her icy heart became a bit chaotic. "Even I do not know why she would suddenly take a liking to me. It's simply an inexplicable development." Yun Qi supported his forehead with his hand as a gloomy look appeared on his face. On the conferred god stage, he had used quite a despicable means to take advantage of Shui Meiyin. Having experienced such a thing, Shui Meiyin despising and being disgusted with him would be the most normal reaction. But the actual outcome was completely the opposite. Even now, he didn't understand the reason behind it. Who can tell the thought process of a little girl? It's truly the strangest thing in the world. However, this isn't a bad thing either. Mu Bingyun turned around as she spoke. "You obtaining the adoration of the young princess of the glazed light realm, as well as the approval of the glazed light realm king, means that you have also obtained the protection of the glazed light realm. As one of the 3 strongest upper star realms of the eastern divine region, even a king realm wouldn't belittle the strength possessed by the glazed light realm. I can't use someone's feelings for this purpose." Yun Qi shook his head. "Forget it, let's talk about it later." Shui Qianheng's voice was reverberating in his head, especially the words he had said at the end. "Be careful of the Brahma monarch goddess." More and more guests continued to come, and all the star realms that had received the invitation arrived on time. They absolutely did not dare show the slightest negligence. As one of the most sacred places of the eastern divine region, Divine Moon City had likely never been so bustling as this day. The time for the wedding ceremony to start drew closer and closer. The wedding ceremony was going to be held before the vast sky, so as to let the whole world know of the grand event taking place in the moon god realm. It was also rumored that several years had been spent on making preparations for the ceremony, in order to get it recorded in the annals of the eastern divine region. But even if this place was Divine Moon City, it wasn't as if all the visitors were seated in their respective locations. Far off in the sky, behind the multiple layers of cloud and mist, Xianxia was quietly standing in midair. Her golden robe outlined the absolutely perfect curves of her body. She was standing below the divine moon, bathing in the moonlight pouring from above. Her face was concealed, but her formless magnificence was enough to even dim the shine of a true goddess of the celestial palace and make her feel ashamed of her inferiority. At her side was still only a shriveled and crooked old person. Gu Zhu. Cough, cough, cough. The shriveled old person lightly let out light, hoarse coughing sounds, as if it was an indication that his flame of life was gradually extinguishing. However, there was a divine light hidden deep within his muddy eyes that could see through everything. First, inviting the whole eastern divine region, and now this divine moon in the sky. Xianxia said in a slow voice. Yue Wuya has truly piqued my curiosity. I already can't wait to find out who exactly this new god empress is. Miss, are you not going to enter the main hall? Gu Zhu asked. There's no need. After all, the other target is not within the main hall. Her eyes under the golden mask were actually looking in the direction of Yun Qi's location. Ha ha, Gu Zhu faintly laughed. Compared to the moon god empress, this child is the true reason behind Miss coming here, huh? Xianxia didn't deny his words. Her lips that appeared to have the powder of crystals applied on them, slightly formed into a dangerous curve. All these fools think that he can safely survive through the 9-stage lightning tribulation because he has received the protection of heavens. But they don't know that. HMPH. I should really thank the self-opinionated idiots of the heavenly mystery realm. Otherwise, I'd have to put in so much effort. Is it the divine power of the evil god? Gu Zhu asked in a slow voice. Xianxia turned her gaze as it fixed on Gu Zhu. Suddenly, the world grew thoroughly cold at this moment. 5 breaths of time later, Xianxia turned her gaze away from him, as she said with an indistinct smile. It seems that nothing can remain hidden before Uncle Gu's insight. No, it was Miss who told the answer to this old slave. The look in Gu Zhu's eyes was still muddy, and no light could be seen within them. So that rumor about the appearance of evil god's inheritance in the southern divine region was true, and the rumor about the heavenly slaughter star god obtaining evil god's inheritance was also true. He was a man who had extremely vast knowledge of things. As someone who had always accompanied Xianxia by her side, her recent careless actions, words, her abnormally strong interest in Yun Qi, and most important of all, her remark that it was the heavenly slaughter star god who told this to me herself, allowed him to piece together the puzzle and gradually figure out the 2 words, evil god. It could only be something around the level of a creation god that could make her no less interested than the world-defying heaven manual. After all, among the great creation gods, there was one who had extreme elemental power, and quite coincidentally, a rumor regarding the inheritance of this creation god had appeared 20-odd years ago, and it also had a connection with the heavenly slaughter star god. You're not to speak about this matter to anyone else, including my royal father. This old slave's life only belongs to Miss, Gu Zhu replied. His body didn't show the slightest movement all this while, as if he was a completely dried-up old well. I won't believe anyone completely in this world, including you, Xianxia said in an indifferent tone. You were the one who taught me these words. Ha ha, Gu Zhu let out a dry laugh. This old slave feels very reassured in his heart to see Miss being able to think in such a way. The inheritance of a creation god, huh? Gu Zhu slightly raised his eyes as they once again shifted towards Yun Qi's silhouette. Even an immensely experienced person, such as him, was unable to remain indifferent when the 2 words, creation god, were brought up. No wonder, no wonder. It's just that there's something my old self doesn't understand. The heavenly slaughter star god didn't hesitate to go on her own to the southern divine region, so her thirst for power could be considered quite strong. Since she succeeded in obtaining the power of evil god, why would she give it to Yun Qi? That's a good question. Xianxia slightly narrowed her beautiful eyes. There was a hint of extreme danger within her ice-cold eyes, We should naturally go and ask about the reason from Xianxia, the person in question. Therefore, the thing I want to do now is to not let him enter the eternal Heaven-Divine realm. Miss wants to capture him secretly and take away his creation god's divine power, Gu Zhu asked. Xianxia Yinger, however, shook her head in response. We still don't know whether it's possible to take away the divine power of a creation god. It'd be for the best if it's possible, but if it's not, I also need to make sure to have him under my control. He was able to win against those of the divine spirit realm with a cultivation in the divine tribulation realm. And now, he can win against divine kings with his cultivation in the divine spirit realm. His strength far, far surpasses other profound practitioners of the same realm. In that case, if he reaches the limit of cultivation in the distant future and becomes an ultimate divine master, his strength will certainly surpass that of other ultimate divine masters. In other words, he will become invincible in the world. If such a thing were to happen, even if he wouldn't be considered a true god, he would still approximately be the same. These words of Xianxia Yinger's were almost the same as what Jasmine had told Xianxia before. If I can bring such a person under my control, it would naturally be a good thing. If I can't, he must be eradicated as soon as possible. Besides, Xianxia Yinger's voice paused for a moment before she continued. I have this feeling that he has many more secrets than just the creation god's divine power. Only 15 days are left before he enters the eternal Heaven-Divine realm. During these 15 days, he will stay under the protection of the eternal Heaven realm, so it might be difficult to come across a suitable opportunity. Gu Zhu spoke in a slow voice, but each of his words would resound like a large bell in the depths of the soul of the listener. It was easy to capture Xianxia, but to do so without letting anyone know was extremely difficult. Xianxia Yinger's blonde hair danced in the air, despite the fact that there was no wind, and a bizarre, divine aura emerged from her body without making any sound. In a split second, even the light of the divine moon that was pouring down on her grew dim. If it's difficult to find the opportunity, then we just have to create the opportunity. So what if the eternal heaven realm is protecting him? A loud shout rang out from far below. The eternal heaven realm has arrived. As the controller of the dimensional profound formation, the eternal heaven god realm was the last to arrive at the venue of the grand event. With the people from the eternal heaven realm settling down in the main hall, there was less than an hour left before the official start of this god-emperor's wedding ceremony that had caused such a commotion in the entire eastern divine region. It was at this time that a bright beam of light shone all of a sudden, adding a bizarre splendor to the world that was completely bathing in the light of the divine moon. Everyone raised their heads subconsciously, only to see a gorgeous palace slowly rising above the sky of the main hall. At this divine moon city, which was the core place of a king realm, this palace appeared to be quite small and exquisite. It was less than 30 meters tall, and not even 100 meters in length. But the aura emitting from this small-sized palace made each and every expert of the eastern divine region feel shaken in their hearts. The bizarre light was also reflecting from this mysterious palace. This strange light didn't seem all that strong, but it easily penetrated the light of the divine moon and flooded everyone's line of sight. This is... Hugh Ruli revealed surprise as he suddenly thought of something. It's Vanishing Moon Celestial Palace, Yan Juhai said aloud. While speaking, his eyes were staring directly at the palace that was slowly rising into the sky. The extremely fervent look his eyes had in that instant was as if he was looking up at the celestial palace of a deity. Vanishing Moon Celestial Palace. It's the Vanishing Moon Celestial Palace. Loud cries of surprise rang out immediately. When the 4 words Vanishing Moon Celestial Palace transmitted into the air, it quickly triggered a series of voices that didn't pause for a long while. What is so unusual about this Vanishing Moon Celestial Palace? Xianxia asked. All those who could arrive here were the topmost existences of the eastern divine region, but despite that everyone turned pale upon hearing the 4 words Vanishing Moon Celestial Palace. It was easy to imagine that this palace flying in the sky was absolutely extraordinary. Vanishing Moon Celestial Palace is the highest-level profound worship in this world. It is also one of the most powerful treasures of the moon god realm. Mu Bingyun explained to Xianxia. Profound worship. Xianxia was faintly startled before his gaze returned to the palace that was emitting the bizarre divine light. Something of this size could only be a profound arc at most. There was simply too much of a difference between it and other warships that were easily over 500 kilometers in size. In the records concerning the vanishing moon celestial palace, some say it was created by the very first 12 moon gods of the moon god realm. Some other records say that it is a divine item that was left behind from the ancient era of gods. The space it contains within it is far greater than what you can see right now, and the most astonishing thing about it, its flying speed. Even when taking the whole god realm into account, its flying speed could be called unrivaled under the heavens. It is said that even a god emperor would find it difficult to catch up to it when it travels at its fastest speed. Even a god emperor would find it difficult to catch up to it. These words of Mu Bingyun's were really shocking to Yun Qi. A god emperor was the strongest existence in this world. If even a god emperor would find it difficult to catch up to it, didn't that mean there wasn't anything that could chase after this vanishing moon celestial palace when it was traveling at its fastest speed? At the same time, it also meant that if one possessed this vanishing moon celestial palace, no matter what sort of enemy one encountered, even if it was a god emperor, they could still escape safely. But that was only true if they could succeed in entering the vanishing moon celestial palace in the first place. If the enemy happened to be in existence at the level of a divine master, one might not even get the chance to enter the vanishing moon celestial palace. The highest level profound warship, It fully deserves to be called the monarch among the profound battleships. Hugh Ruli sighed with emotion. I didn't think that I'd have the luck to actually get to see it today, This is strange. Why would the vanishing moon celestial palace suddenly appear at such a time? Inside the vanishing moon celestial palace, the silhouette of a person could be seen slowly walking out in the midst of the strange light. It was none other than the moon god emperor. He was standing above the vanishing moon celestial palace, with a faint smile on his face and his arms raised above his head. As everyone looked up at him, the vast voice of the god emperor poured down. Esteemed guests, for you all to spare no hardship to be present at my divine moon city on this occasion. This king warmly welcomes you from the bottom of my heart. I feel extremely honored. There was still almost an hour before the wedding ceremony, but the moon god emperor had already appeared and addressed the guests. He seemed to be in an extremely good mood, so much so that even his coercion as a god emperor felt less suffocating and more like a refreshing divine aura. This king has been the moon god realm king for a very long time now. I have 371 concubines in total, and the number of my grandchildren can be counted in thousands. However, I have never had an empress, which has always been a matter of great regret for this king. It was certainly true that he had never had an empress. Back then, although he had declared to the whole world that he has chosen Yue Wugu as his empress, an unforeseen event happened before she could officially become the empress. However, today, this king has invited the outstanding individuals of the Eastern divine region from far and wide, in order to be witness to this king marrying his god empress, the one that will be the god empress of my moon god realm. As the god emperor finished his words, the outstanding individuals present at this place became quiet, and no one dared respond on their own initiative. At this time, an extremely untimely voice rang out. Since today she's going to be the empress, what need is there to still keep her hidden? Could it be that this god empress of you, Yue Wuya, is ashamed of seeing people? Upon hearing these words, the whole place became silent in a split second. No one needed to look or even use their brains to know who could speak such words on such an occasion at this place. It could only be one person, the star god emperor. The disharmonious relationship between the star god realm and the moon god realm was known by everyone under the heavens. In the recent years, they had become even more hostile towards each other, which was due to what happened with Yue Wugu back then. Although people were panic-stricken upon hearing the cold and hateful response of the star god emperor at such a time, it wasn't too unexpected for them either. But to everyone's amazement, the moon god emperor didn't get angry in the least, and instead reacted with a smile. Ha 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 ha! The moon god emperor let out a very mild, loud laugh. No one could feel the slightest hint of concealed anger from his laughing voice, and his face was also brimming with joy. The star god emperor is right. This is definitely a mistake on this king's part. However, there is a reason for this king deciding to do so, and I think most of you all have some understanding of it, too. More than 30 years ago, this king wanted to marry Yue Wugu as his empress, but she encountered the conspiracy of some villain on the eve of the wedding ceremony. Not only did I fail to keep Yue Wugu safe, this king also became a great laughingstock. All the people present at the place revealed surprise on their faces. The matter of Yue Wugu was the biggest disgrace to the Moon God Emperor in his life. It was also why absolutely no one would dare mention the two words, Yue Wugu, in front of the Moon God Emperor. Otherwise, it would be no different from digging your own grave. But right now, the Moon God Emperor had actually taken the initiative to bring it up. He was revealing the scar of his biggest disgrace in the presence of everyone. Furthermore, despite talking about such a thing, the Moon God Emperor didn't seem to be forcing himself or depressed. Rather, his whole face was brimming with a smile, as if he was mentioning some insignificant, trivial matter. Therefore, so as to guard against the villains out there and protect this king's God Empress, this king had to be a little cautious. I hope that everyone here will forgive me. Inside the main hall, the Brahma Monarch God Emperor, the Eternal Heaven God Emperor, and all the people from the Star God realm had expressions of surprise on their faces. They totally didn't think that, let alone getting angry at the Star God Emperor's cold words. The Moon God Emperor would explain the situation patiently, and even expose his scar in an incomparably calm manner. The Moon God Emperor they knew was absolutely not such a magnanimous person. Seeing the smiling look of the Moon God Emperor, the Star God Emperor raised his brows. It felt as if he had unleashed an all-out punch on cotton, and such an outcome made his whole body experience an inexplicable discomfort. However, now that this day has finally come, this king naturally doesn't need to complicate matters any longer. Although it is still not time for the wedding ceremony, since the Star God Emperor wishes it so, I can only comply. The tone of the Moon God Emperor's voice changed all of a sudden, as a gentle, faint smile emerged on his face. King Yu, show yourself, and let everyone take a look at you. Low cries immediately erupted in Divine Moon City, as the gazes of everyone present became extremely fervent all at once. Hearing the words of the Moon God Emperor, it was clear to everyone that the incomparably mysterious God Empress-to-be, for whom the Moon God Emperor didn't hesitate to use the grand phenomenon of the divine moon in the sky in order to make the whole world know of his wedding ceremony, was finally going to appear before their eyes. Far off in the distant sky above, Kyanai Yinger's phoenix-like eyes also slightly narrowed under the golden mask. Let's see just what sort of woman could make the Moon God Emperor act so unimaginably self-satisfied. Even the always calm and peaceful Gu Zhu had an unusual light emitting from his eyes. Qing Yue, Yun Qi, and Mu Bingyun were startled at the same time upon hearing the name called out by the Moon God Emperor. Hearing Yun Qi's words, Mu Bingyun said in a light tone, "What a coincidence!" Yun Qi slightly nodded his head. "Yes, it's such a coincidence. Speaking of which, it has been so long since I have heard this name." Coincidence? Listening to their conversation, Huo Poyun asked with curiosity, "Brother Yun, could it be that you know this God Empress?" "Of course not." Yun Qi shook his head as he told him in a calm manner. "My first wife in the lower realms is also named King Yu. Therefore, I felt a bit emotional upon hearing this world all of a sudden." I see." Huo Poyun nodded, but looking at Yun Qi, he figured that there was much more to it than just feeling a bit emotional. The word King Yu had generated ripples in Yun Qi's heart. 12 years ago, he had married Xia Qingyu in a small, floating cloud city. That was the time when he was at the lowest and most helpless point in his life. But he was actually given a dignified girl. Their marriage was an antenatal betrothal. They were also officially wed, and so their relationship was that of a genuine husband and wife, though they never really lived like a married couple. The Battle of Blue Wind, Heaven Basin's secret realm, returning to Azure Cloud, defeating the Sword Saint, joining Asgard together. The relation between the two of them quietly underwent subtle changes. Yun Qi was also always secretly happy to perceive that the icy heart of Xia Qingyu was melting for him bit by bit. But all of this came to a spontaneous end on the day he went to the Divine Phoenix Empire. When he was buried in the primordial profound arc, frozen cloud Asgard experienced a disaster, and Xia Qingyu was teleported to some unknown world as its last hope. He returned to the profound sky continent 3 years later, but he still hadn't heard anything from her since. Time passed by unknowingly, and it had been 8 years now. The world under the heavens was boundless, so it was impossible for anyone to know where exactly the dimensional formation that was left behind in frozen cloud Asgard by Mu Bingyun had sent Xia Qingyu to, and they had no way of looking for her either. They could only hope that Xia Qingyu could return to the Blue Pole Star, to their profound sky continent on her own someday. Seeing the depressed and frustrated look of Yun Qi, Mu Bingyun comforted him. "Don't worry, she has the protection of the heavens." She had been to the profound sky continent thrice, and had already seen Xia Qingyu from above the clouds at an earlier time. Later, she also slowly came to know about the relationship between her and Yun Qi. Yun Qi faintly smiled. She also said that Qingyu is someone that has the protection of heavens, so there's no need to worry. By she, he was referring to Jasmine. She had told Yun Qi that Xia Qingyu possessed 9 profound, exquisite body and heart of snow-glazed glass. The former was the best dual cultivation incubator in the world, and the latter, a body protected by heavens. There were countless creatures living under the heavens, so having names that were similar or exactly the same was a totally normal thing. Yun Qi also soon concealed his depressed look, as he looked towards the side of the moon god emperor, full of expectations. He was waiting for the mysterious god empress to make her appearance. The unusual change in the moon god emperor's attitude and the god empress that had never shown herself to others before greatly piqued the curiosity of everyone from the eastern divine region. They didn't have to wait long as a figure slowly walked out from inside the vanishing moon celestial palace, following the moon god emperor's warm voice, and finally stopped beside him. The divine moon city that was brimming with numerous experts of the eastern divine region immediately became pin-drop silent. Everyone held their breath as if their hearts and souls were heavily struck by something. She was dressed in a long, moon-white robe that had its hem dragging on the floor, as if she had just walked out of the moon. Her bearing was dreamy, like that of a fairy. Her skin was flawless, like white jade, seemingly reflecting the bright and dazzling sunlight like frost and snow in winter days. Her face was so gorgeous, as if the heavens had poured all their effort and care into making it, and even the world's most beautiful flowery language would be unable to comment on and describe even a little bit of its charm. The moment she came out, it seemed as if incomparably radiant, beautiful, and dazzling rays of light were shining within everyone's eyes, making the whole world appear particularly bright and lustrous. Who was the moon god emperor? He was one of the 4 god emperors of the eastern divine region, one of the god realm's most respected men. But this woman almost concealed the existence of the moon god emperor just by standing quietly beside him. She concealed nearly all the radiance in the world. Even the light of the divine moon that was illuminating the world had become a bit dim in her presence. She is so beautiful. Xue Meiyin brought her hand to her lips as she muttered in a daze. Xue Yingyu's was directly staring at her, as she found it impossible to take her eyes off her. Despite the fact that she was a goddess in the eastern divine region who had both absolutely beautiful looks and a respectable background, she clearly felt deeply suffocated before this woman, as well as feeling inferior from the bottom of her soul for the first time in her life. Just her temperament and looks are enough for her to be a suitable match for the moon god emperor. Shui Qianheng, the glazed light realm king, expressed his opinion. The people who were present at this place were absolutely not like those earthly, ordinary beings, but countless people were still intoxicated and dazed upon seeing the woman. Wow, Huo Poyun unintentionally let out a light cry. Although I haven't seen the Dragon Queen and Goddess, the legendary Dragon Queen and Goddess should not be any better than this, right? He turned to Yun Qi after finishing his words so as to seek his agreement, but he was instantly taken aback when his eyes turned to him. Yun Qi was fixedly staring at the woman that had appeared beside the moon god emperor. His eyes were widened to their limit, and his body was completely still, as if he had suddenly lost his soul. Huo Poyun first thought that he had lost himself due to the exceptional beauty of the woman. But then he noticed that his pupils were intensely expanding and contracting within his dull eyes, and his slightly opened lips had gradually begun to tremble. Eventually, his whole body started to shake continuously. Soon after, his face went pale to an abnormal extent. "Brother Yun, are you all right?" Huo Poyun promptly asked. Yun Qi didn't show the slightest reaction to his words, but they did bring Mu Bingyun to herself, who had been also in a daze until now. She suddenly turned her eyes away from the woman, but there was a shocked and chaotic expression in her icy eyes. It was because the moon god empress-to-be who had appeared beside the moon god emperor was someone she and Yun Qi had seen before. "Xia, Qing, Yue, she is truly a great beauty, huh?" Above the clouds far away in the distance, Qianai Yinger praised in a voice that contained no emotions. "Ha ha," Guju laughed obscurely. "She is the first person to be able to receive praise for their looks by Miss." Qianai Yinger faintly raised the corner of her lips, as she said with an indistinct smile, "Her fairy-like looks could be called the most gorgeous in the eastern divine region, so it is strange for her to remain so unknown. However, if that was all she had, it wouldn't be possible for her to make Yue Wuya hold the ceremony in such a grand manner, right? A bizarre, sharp light flashed in Gu Zhu's old, muddy eyes. His bark-like, dried-up lips slowly uttered 4 words in a hoarse voice. Heart of glazed glass. Kaianai Ying'er body stiffened for an instant, after which an extremely severe change appeared on her face all of a sudden. The expression in her eyes looking downward had also totally changed. After a long while, she finally took her eyes off of the woman and talked to herself in a low voice. I see now. At the same time, the eternal heaven god emperor also slowly stood up inside the main hall, with his brows knitted. He was only doubtful in the beginning, but as his gaze locked onto the woman, the doubt quickly turned into an increasingly greater shock. Eternal heaven, what is it? The Brahma heaven god emperor frowned. If the eternal heaven god emperor was displaying such an expression, he must have discovered something unimaginably alarming. The eternal heaven god emperor didn't show any reaction. The way he kept on staring blankly seemed as if he didn't dare believe his own eyes. It was only after several breaths' time that he slowly said in a very low and deep voice, Heart of glazed glass. What? The 4 words astounded all the people from the king realms that were seated in the main hall. Following, everyone's expression suddenly changed. The voice of the eternal heaven god emperor seemed to contain an uncontrollable penetration power, and even the people outside the hall clearly heard his words. As if thunderclaps had resounded beside their ears, Divine Moon City instantly became clamorous. Heart of glazed glass. Heart of snow-glazed glass. Is that really true? Wasn't it impossible for the heart of glazed glass to appear in this world again? The eternal heaven god emperor has personally said so. How could it be wrong? No wonder that the moon god emperor has changed his attitude. No wonder that the moon god emperor wanted to organize this event on such a grand scale. We're talking about none other than the heart of glazed glass that has the divine protection of the heavens. If the legend is true, once the moon god realm gets the woman of glazed glass to be its god empress in the future, wouldn't it? The legend is naturally true. Isn't the eternal heaven god realm the best proof of it? There was an extremely intense look of surprise on the face of each and every person. In the history of the god realm, there had been a lot of people that were born with extraordinary bodies. Some had 2 kinds of divine power. Some had affinity with elemental profound power. And there we also cases like Luo Changsheng that had affinity with multiple elements as well as possessed multiple divine powers. The topmost level extraordinary bodies that were the most difficult to find were of the kind such as the stainless divine body of Yue Wugu and stainless divine soul of Shui Meiyin. But if there was a divine body that could cause a great sensation in the entire god realm, it would certainly be the heart of glazed glass. In the ancient records, the so-called heart of glazed glass referred to the fragments of heart and soul that were left behind after the ego of the ancestral god perished in the beginning phase of the primal chaos, and they were the last of the ancestral power that remained in the world. All the creatures, energies, and laws in the world originated from the ancestral god, and as the heart of glazed glass was the last of the ancestral power, it was an existence that the heavens had to protect at all cost. It might be due to the fact that the ancestral god was a female that everyone who possessed the heart of glazed glass was also a female, who were called the woman of glazed glass, or daughter of the heavens in the records. Note: Yun Qi's title can also be translated as son of the heavens. It actually incomparably corresponded to Yun Qi's current title of child of the heavens. According to the records, even in the era of gods, there were extremely few people who had the heart of glazed glass, and only one such person had appeared in the history of the god realm. It was none other than the eternal heaven ancestor from 600,000 years ago. If people found it difficult to fully believe that the woman of glazed glass obtained the protection of the heavens as mentioned in the ancient records, the eternal heaven ancestor from 600,000 years shocked everyone with her experiences and very clearly showed why it was called the protection of the heavens. The only heavenly profound treasure in the world, the eternal heaven pearl, took the initiative to recognize her as its owner, so as to be controlled by her. Under her leadership, the eternal heaven realm transformed from an ordinary star realm to a high and mighty king realm of the eastern divine region in the very short period of 1,000 years. It even surpassed the star god realm and the moon god realm, and had always remained a topmost existence till now. Ever since, no one doubted that the heart of glazed glass could obtain the protection of the heavens. It was just that they also believed that as the era of gods had already ended, as the primal chaos was growing more and more turbid, and primordial energy was becoming increasingly sparse. The appearance of someone like the eternal heaven ancestor was the last such miracle, and it was impossible for a woman of glazed glass to appear in the world again. However, the woman that was quietly standing beside the moon god emperor within their line of sight, the very same person who made the moon god emperor not spare the effort to invite people from the entire eastern divine region, and even use the phenomenon of divine moon in the sky. She not only had the appearance of a goddess and a world-toppling beauty, she was also surprisingly the woman of glazed glass, who possessed the heart of glazed glass. It was the second time that such a miracle had happened in the god realm, only preceded by the eternal heaven ancestor. At this moment, everyone understood why the moon god emperor would go so far for this wedding ceremony and for this god empress. No, considering that he was able to get the woman of glazed glass as his god empress, it would be only natural even if his actions were 10 or 100 times more exaggerated. While all the people were in a daze or overwhelmed with shock and apprehension, it was solely Xianxia who was intensely trembling, with a frighteningly chaotic look in his eyes, as if he had fallen into an ice-cold abyss all of a sudden. His aura started to go out of control gradually. "Xianxia," Mu Bingyun knitted her brows. There was a sense of urgency in her voice. Bang, the jade cup in Xianxia's hand crushed to pieces as he lost control over his profound energy. The shattering sound of the small jade cup caused the eyes of Hu Ruli, Mu Huanji, and the rest of them to swivel around. They took a look at Xianxia's present state, and all of them felt a jolt of shock run through them. "What's the matter?" Crack. After the jade cup had shattered, there was an explosive crack, and a long crack appeared in the jade table that they were sitting at. Mu Bingyun swiftly extended her hand and pressed it against Xianxia's arm. A wave of cold energy instantly suppressed his agitated aura. "Xianxia, calm down. That's not necessarily her." In this vast and boundless universe, for people to share the same name and even look nearly the same was definitely no rare thing. Besides, the God Empress in front of them was quite different from the Xia Qingyu in both Xianxia's and Mu Bingyun's memories. Furthermore, their status and level were separated by an uncountable distance. One was a young Asgard master in a sect from one of the lower realms, and the other was someone who was about to become the God Empress of a king realm. Yet Xianxia knew that it was her. There was no reason for this feeling, but the moment Xianxia laid his eyes on her, he was absolutely convinced that this person was Xia Qingyu. She definitely was. He did not even have the slightest shred of doubt. In her 16th year, she was still a young and tender girl, but SH already possessed a peerless elegance even then. When she was 17, during the Blue Wind ranking tournament, the moment her snowy veil fell from her face, it caused the entire Heavenly Sword Villa to go still. The year she turned 19, she had already become the young Asgard master of frozen Cloud Asgard, and the eternal snow of the snow region of extreme ice was not even comparable to just a fleeting moment of her sweet and beautiful laughter. And now that he finally saw her again, she had turned into a true heavenly goddess. Her elegance and beauty even caused the divine moon in the sky to seem dim and ashamed. She was Xia Qingyu. They had no news or communication of or from her for the last 8 years, but he had finally seen her again, in a place that he definitely had not imagined, in a situation that he had definitely never imagined either, and with a status that had exceeded his wildest fantasies. Upon seeing her again, he should have felt a big burden lifted off his shoulders. He should have broken out into wild and rapturous joy. But why in the world was she the God Empress that the Moon God Emperor was about to marry? His aura had been suppressed by Mu Bingyun, but Xianxia's heart was still in complete chaos. He tried to get himself to calm down, but all of the blood in his body was rushing to his head at a crazy rate, and no matter what he did, he could not suppress it. "Brother Yun, you—" Just as Hu Poyun wanted to ask a question, his arm was fiercely held down by Hu Ruli, who slowly shook his head at him. Hu Ruli, Yan Juhai, Mu Huanji, and the rest did not say a word, and the only thing that lingered in their hearts was a deep shock. Xianxia definitely was not the kind of person who lost control of his emotions easily. On the contrary, he was able to face the might of Honorable Kui without changing expression, and he was even able to deliver a stern rebuke to him. No matter how serious his injuries were on the conferred God stage, he was as calm and composed as a demon. Even when he faced all the inducements of the Realm Kings, he could still reject each and every one of them with immeasurable calm. Yet at this very moment, it seemed as if the spirit of this man was being seized by a demon. His entire body was shaking. They were unable to imagine what kind of provocation could cause Yuan Qi, who could even calmly reject realm kings, to lose control to such an extent. It was not only limited to Yuan Qi either. It was clear that the aura of Mu Bingyun, who stood beside him, had also been thrown into disorder. All of this had happened after the moon god empress had shown herself. They did not dare speculate or make any wild guesses, but there was at least one thing that was clear. This was definitely not a matter that outsiders could butt into or interfere with. Yuan Qi, don't be impulsive, Mu Bingyun said once again in a low voice, a voice that was laced with a profound powerlessness. The others had been astounded due to the god empress, heart of glazed glass, but she had been deeply shocked for a different reason, shocked to the point where she simply could not bring herself to believe that this was actually Xia Qingyu. She kept her hand firmly pressed against Yuan Qi's arm, stopping him from making any fast moves. This was the moon god realm, an incomparably exalted king realm, so who would dare cause any trouble here? But Mu Bingyun knew that Yuan Qi definitely would dare. It was absolutely not because he was presumptuous and foolhardy, or a person who had no appreciation of the weight of things. It was because he had a pride and dignity that was carved into his bones. He could let anything go, he could face anything with a calm tranquility, but he would never ever let anyone cross the bottom line of his dignity. This was a point that Mu Bingyun had seen demonstrated very clearly from the first day that she brought him to the Snow Song realm. When he had first arrived in the Snow Song realm, he mercilessly dealt a serious wound to the nephew of the Hall Master of Freezing Snow Hall, Mu Fengshu. When he was at the Heavenly Netherfrost Lake, he had not hesitated to go against Mu Xuanian because of injustice. When he had reached the Profound God Convention, he had demonstrated this point to its extreme. This was something that was carved into his very bones, something that could not be changed for as long as he lived. Furthermore, Xia Qingyu was not just some close female friend, or just some lover who had promised her future to him. She was his officially wedded wife, yet she was going to become the Moon God Empress. This was undoubtedly the humiliation of having his wife stolen from him. The humiliation of having your wife stolen from you was an enormous disgrace that any normal man would not be able to accept. In fact, one could even call it the greatest humiliation, let alone Yuan Qi. Mu Bingyun gave a silent sigh as her jade finger traced in the air, and after that, an ice phoenix aura engulfed Yuan Qi's entire body. In a split second, it seemed as if someone had dumped cold water all over Yuan Qi. His entire body shuddered, and his wild and disordered eyes finally regained some of their clarity. Everyone's attention was focused on the God Empress who had shown herself, so no one else noticed Yuan Qi's weird behavior, with the exception of one person, Xianxia Yinger. In the clouds above, her gaze lingered on Yuan Qi's body for a long time as the corners of her lips curved up slightly. To think that a person who wasn't even interested in me would have such an amusing reaction towards her. It looks like Yuan Qi and this Moon God Empress do have some kind of mysterious connection after all. Miss, Guju said, this girl not only possesses the heart of glazed glass, she also possesses something that Miss has always been searching for. Oh, Xianxia Yinger's eyes slanted to the side, following that there was a slight change in her expression as she said, you are saying that? The nine profound exquisite body, Guju said in a placid manner. Xianxia Yinger did not say anything, and she remained silent for a good long while. The nine profound exquisite body. Someone who possessed that contained a little world within their profound veins, could break through realms and transcend the laws of the universe. It was publicly acknowledged as the best dual cultivation incubator in the universe. As one's profound strength grew stronger, the existence of the exquisite world would become harder and harder for people to detect. But it still could not escape the turbid and dreadful eyes of Guju. Heart of glazed glass and the nine profound exquisite body. Just one of these would be considered a gift from heaven, yet she actually has both. This is something that has never been seen before. Guju let out a deep and quiet sigh. Far too many strange and abnormal things have appeared in the eastern divine region of this era. Could it be that all of these have been born from the coming calamity? Xianxia Yinger did not respond. Her gaze no longer lingered on Yuan Qi. Instead, her eyes bored into Xia Qingyu. After a long time, she suddenly said in a cold voice, does the energy of her vital yin still exist? Guju gave a faint nod of his head. He knew that Xianxia Yinger would definitely ask this question. Ah, now that is amazing. Such a beauty who even possesses the exquisite body, yet she is actually still a virgin. Has this Yue Wuya cultivated to the point of becoming a saint, or has he become a eunuch? Kayana Yinger said with faintly narrowed eyes. The aura of her vital yin remains, and that also means that her exquisite world can still be taken from her. The woman of glazed glass is protected by the heavenly law. This is something that definitely isn't just baseless hearsay, Gu Zhai pronounced slowly. Forcefully robbing her of her exquisite body might perhaps not be the best choice. I've never ever believed in the so-called heavenly law, Kayana Yinger said with a soft, cold laugh. Even if the heavenly law truly exists, then all I need to do is overthrow them. Gu Zhu remained silent at that. King Yu, you may go and rest. As he stood in the vanishing moon's celestial palace above, the moon god emperor's gaze swept across the entire area. He was not the least bit surprised at everyone's reactions. Xia Qingyu turned around and went inside the vanishing moon's celestial palace. From the start to end, she had not uttered a single word. Even her expression and the look in her eyes had not even suffered the slightest ripple during the entire process. But all she needed to do was to show herself for that one instant. Star God Emperor. So are you still satisfied? The Moon God Emperor's cheery voice was directed to the Star God Emperor. Compared to the cold words that the Star God Emperor had said in public, his counterstroke was warm in the extreme, yet it had undoubtedly been a complete and utter victory for him. The Star God Emperor gave a cold snort. His hands had curled into tightly clenched fists, and his complexion was ashen. In fact, it had been a long time since his complexion had looked this bad. It could be said that the Star God realm had been going through a rather unfortunate period in their history in the recent years. The Star Gods were so strong that they had more often than not died in their beds rather than in battle. But in the recent years, the Star God realm had suffered one unfortunate incident after another. In the short span of a few decades, both the Heavenly Wolf Star God and the Heavenly Slaughter Star God had fallen one after the other. The good thing was that the Heavenly Slaughter had returned afterwards, and the Heavenly Wolf had found a new successor. But after that, the Heavenly Poison Star God had been exterminated by a single knife stroke of the Heavenly Slaughter Star God. He had kept the matter of the death of the Heavenly Poison Star God under lockdown, so it was impossible to find this out even if you were a denizen of the Star God realm, much less an outsider. On the other hand, the Moon God realm actually got a woman of glazed glass as their God Empress. As the Moon God Emperor smiled and said those words in that cheery voice of his, the Star God Emperor felt as if his heart, spleen, lungs, and kidneys were about to explode due to anger, and his heart welled up with an incomparably strong hatred that was born out of jealousy. The sound of countless praise and gasps of admiration immediately rang out in divine Moon City. The assorted phrases of flattery all gathered up into a veritable tidal wave of sound. Within the main palace, the Brahma Heaven God Emperor said, "No wonder the Moon God Emperor made this wedding celebration so high profile, and he even went so far as to mention what happened all those years ago as well. So this explains everything. The humiliation he suffered all those years ago already doesn't exist anymore," the Eternal Heaven God Emperor said. The reputation of being protected by heaven that the heart of glazed glass possessed was something that he absolutely believed in. Just based on the words, heart of glazed glass, even if that person was as ugly as a sow, even existences on the level of the God Emperors would snatch to make her their empress, so as to protect themselves and their king realm. Furthermore, her appearance was actually far superior to the Yue Wugu of all those years ago. Just based on looks alone, she was already worthy to be the Moon God Empress, and it was not just Shui Qianhang who held these thoughts. At this moment, it seemed like the humiliation of yesteryear had somehow turned into a fortunate affair in the end. From today onwards, no one had any right to laugh at the Moon God realm in secret anymore. Even if it was a king realm, the only things they could feel would be extreme envy and admiration. Following the departure of Xia Qingyu, the trembling of Yun Qi's body grew more and more subdued until it finally stopped completely. The waves of noise all around him engulfed his ears. From very long ago, Jasmine had told him that Xia Qingyu possessed the heart of glazed glass, so she had the protection of heaven. In the Snow Song realm, Muxuanian had also gave him a simple explanation regarding the heart of glazed glass. Just based on the fragments of knowledge he had obtained from Jasmine and Muxuanian, it was basically impossible for him to understand exactly what having a heart of glazed glass entailed. But today, he had witnessed the reactions of all the powerhouses of the Eastern Divine region, and seeing the moon god emperor smile as if the world was at his feet. All these things told him just what the heart of glazed glass really meant. But to him, all of these things were not important. The important point was that she was Xia Qingyu. When she saw that Yun Qi looked like he was calming down and was not giving any indication that he was about to take drastic action, Mu Bingyun breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, she saw Yun Qi's gaze swivel towards her as he asked her a question. "Palace Master Bingyun, do you think she knows that I'm still alive?" Upon looking at Yun Qi's eyes, Mu Bingyun felt her heart thump fiercely. Because those eyes were actually incomparably calm to the point that it was terrifying, but there was also a formless, gloomy darkness that veiled them. Those eyes looked as if they were hiding two vicious beasts which were about to go berserk at any moment. Mu Bingyun was unable to reply with words. She could only shake her head. When Xia Qingyu had been sent away from frozen cloud Asgard all those years ago, the entire profound sky continent knew that Yun Qi was buried in the primordial profound arc. So to the best of her knowledge at the time, Yun Qi was already dead. From that year onwards, until the onset of the profound god convention, Xia Qingyu should have been under the notion that Yun Qi no longer existed in this world. But during the conferred god battle, Yun Qi's name resounded throughout the entire god realm. As long as they lived in the Eastern Divine region, there was zero possibility that one had not heard the name Yun Qi, to say nothing of the fact that she lived in a place such as the moon god realm. Upon hearing that name, as long as she went to look at the profound imagery stone that was receiving images of the conferred god battle, she should have known that Yun Qi still lived. So this question was something that Mu Bingyun really could not answer. Because whether Yun Qi was already dead held completely different meanings for Yun Qi and Xia Qingyu. Yun Qi went silent, and Mu Bingyun did not say anything else either. Huo Poyun, Yan Juhai, and the others felt a formless pressure, but they did not say anything in the end. They only felt violent and tempestuous waves blow in their hearts. Within Divine Moon City, that was engulfed in noise, the only pocket of bizarre silence was in the area where they were seated. At this moment, a young girl wearing a long moon-white robe appeared. Her figure was delicate and achingly beautiful, and her vivacity was overflowing, but she also possessed a forcefully delicate beauty and nobility. This caused many of the strong individuals of the Eastern Divine region to look at her again and again. Yet none of them dared to speak to her out of fear of offending her, because the moon-white robe that she was wearing was embroidered with the moon god realm's divine moon mark. She passed through row upon row of seats before she started moving in the direction of where the Snow Song realm and the Fkame god realm were seated. To the shock and surprise of Hugh, Ruli, and the rest, she finally came to a stop at Yun Qi's side. "May I dare to ask if this is Sir Yun Qi?" the young girl asked with some apprehension. Yun Qi's eyes slanted to the side as he looked at her. "And you are?" The other party had tacitly confirmed his identity, so the young girl immediately gave a polite bow and said, "This servant's name is Jin Yue. I am the personal maidservant of the Moon God Empress." Upon hearing the words Moon God Empress, Yun Qi's eyes jolted into focus. The expressions on Mu Bingyun and the rest also changed, but not all the expressions were the same. The change in Yun Qi's eyes caused Jin Yue's heart to fiercely jump. She did not know what had happened, but she felt a faint sense of uneasiness grow in her heart. She hurriedly offered up a jade box, and the words that she spoke after that were laced with nervousness. The Moon God Empress said that she had previously owed a debt of gratitude to the Snow Song realm, so she specifically bestows this gift to Sir Yun. As Yun Qi's gaze bored into her, Jin Yue fiercely trembled at that moment, and she was unable to say the words that were supposed to follow after that. Yun Qi extended his hand and took the jade box, his face completely expressionless. Jin Yue breathed a long sigh of relief in her heart. She did not know where the unease that had suddenly risen in her heart had come from. She only knew that she wanted to leave immediately. She gave a small curtsy as she said, "Jin Yue will take her leave." "Wait a moment." Yun Qi's finger lightly caressed the top of the jade box before he opened it up and looked at the jade white medicinal pellet which was releasing a mysterious aura. After that he asked, "Can I ask a question?" "Sir Yun, please do so," Jin Yue said as her body tensed up slightly. "Since your god empress knows me, then does that mean that she has also seen the images recorded from the conferred god battle?" Yun Qi asked as he took the jade white medicinal pellet from the box and deposited it into the sky poison pearl without looking. Only an empty jade box remained in his hand after that. Jin Yue felt a weird tension snake around her, so she was too busy to even think about why Yun Qi would ask such a question. She answered in a straightforward and honest manner. The Empress is possessed of a passive and retiring personality, so she did not pay close attention to the conferred god battle. Is that so? Yun Qi asked calmly, his face still expressionless. A rolled-up scroll of paper had appeared in his hand. After that, he put that scroll of paper into the jade box and lightly closed the jade box once again. The Moon God Empress has shown such great kindness, so how can this humble one not return the favor? Yun Qi lifted up the jade box and placed it in front of Jin Yue. Can I trouble Miss Jin Yue to deliver the present of my humble self to the Moon God Empress? And I insist that she open it herself. Jin Yue involuntarily took the box, and after a brief moment of hesitance, she responded kindly, Sir Yun, the Moon God Empress' temperament is very mild and gentle. She has received countless congratulatory gifts, but she has not touched a single one yet. Yun Qi's eyes narrowed slightly as he said, Then I would trouble Miss Jin Yue to add this when presenting it to her. This is the great congratulatory gift that Floating Clouds Xiao Qi has sent to her on this joyous occasion. Jin Yue definitely was not just some ordinary servant girl. She was born in the Moon God realm and was even chosen to serve the future God Empress. Her status was definitely far above the majority of the profound practitioners who lived in the Moon God realm. At the very least, she would not be a timid person who was prone to losing her head. But in front of Yun Qi, she could not shake this feeling of unease and nervousness that had dogged her since the start of the conversation, and she especially did not dare to meet his gaze directly. Jin Yue will be taking her leave. Yun Qi did not know whether she had remembered his instructions as he watched her hurriedly leave the area. Huo Ruli and the others looked at each other, and Mu Huanji finally could not help but to ask, Our Snow Song realm is owed a debt of gratitude by the God Empress. Just what is going on? But Yun Qi and Mu Bingyun did not reply. Mu Huanji stroked his beard to lessen the awkwardness he felt. The mysterious relationship between Xia Qingyu and the Snow Song realm was one that Yun Qi and Mu Bingyun were well aware of. After she had reached God realm, Xia Qingyu would naturally gradually become aware of the fact that the frozen and divine art that she had cultivated in Frozen Cloud Asgard was actually the Snow Song realm's Ice Phoenix God investiture canon. What did you give to her? Mu Bingyun asked, her eyes filled with worry. The marriage contract between her and I, Yun Qi said in a bland voice. PFFFFD, Huo Ruli instantly spat out the wine he had just drunk all over his body and the table in front of him. He immediately tried to wipe himself clean in a fluster before he stammered out a response. I didn't hear anything just now, nothing at all. As if he was afraid Huo Poyun would run his mouth and ask stupid questions, he disregarded his pathetic appearance and grabbed Huo Poyun as he said, Poyun, your master still has many important things to talk to you about. After you enter the eternal heaven pearl, blah blah. The marriage contract between her and I, the marriage contract between Yun Qi and the Moon God Empress. That was some F-seeking bolt out of the blue. In fact, Huo Ruli, Yan Juhai, and Mu Huanji, three great divine sovereigns, had all been blasted so hard that they were rendered completely dumbfounded right there and then. The news was so big that they felt as if they were drowning in a boundless and endless tidal wave. I will go take a look at our disciples. Mu Huanji's forehead was filled with sweat, and when he stood up, he staggered as he tripped over his chair. Cough, I will go as well. Yan Juhai, who was normally as calm and steady as a mountain, seemed to almost be running away as he left the scene. So it looks like you don't believe what that maidservant told you just now, Mu Bingyun said as she looked at Yun Qi. No, I do believe her, Yun Qi said impassively. She must not have seen the profound images that captured the profound God convention, nor does she know that I am alive. Why do you say that? Because I understand her. Yun Qi lightly closed his eyes as he was recalling some unknown memory. She is really a person who possesses an extremely retiring and passive personality. She has been like that since she was a child. The profound way has always been her only pursuit, and she was completely indifferent to anything besides that. Mu Bingyun. Even though she did not see the profound images that captured the profound God convention, she definitely did hear of my name. It's just that, Yun Qi said as he gave a self-deprecating chuckle. It was not possible for her to link me with the Yun Qi that she had heard about. It was just like when he had first heard the Moon God Emperor say the name, Qingyu. He had definitely never thought that she would be Xia Qingyu. He did not even think there was the slightest possibility it would be her, because it was impossible for him to connect Xia Qingyu with the moon god empress. Likewise, it was even less likely for her to link the number one in the conferred god battle to him, to say nothing of someone whom she thought was already dead. Mu Bingyun looked at Yun Qi in silence. Yun Qi's words told her that in Xia Qingyu's world, Yun Qi was her ex-husband who had died many years ago, so it was completely up to her whether she wanted to marry someone else. These words were spoken for Mu Bingyun's benefit, or perhaps they were spoken to console himself. Since she is someone with a retiring and passive temperament, she naturally will not covet the title of Moon God Empress. So perhaps she is being forced to do so, or there are some difficult circumstances behind her choice, Mu Bingyun said as she tried to console Yun Qi. After all, if the Moon God Emperor wants someone to become his God Empress, it would be impossible for that person to reject him. No, Yun Qi said with a shake of his head. She is indeed someone who will not covet the title of God Empress, but she is also someone who will not be coerced by anyone. Mu Bingyun. Palace Master Bingyun, when I got married to her 12 years ago, she was already being pursued by countless admirers. Furthermore, she had also already been accepted as an official disciple of Frozen Cloud Asgard. However, the me at that time was someone who had a weak body and crippled profound veins, and even the servants within my own family would mock me in secret. The gap between heaven and earth was not even sufficient to describe the distance between the two of us. Yet she still agreed to get married to me, and it definitely was not because she was forced, nor were there some difficult circumstances compelling her to do so. Rather, it was entirely of her own free will. Mu Bingyun was left slightly dumbfounded at those words. The me at that time was not only grateful to her, but adored her as well. On the first day that we were married, I had decided in my heart that no matter what status she had, I would definitely cause her to truly fall in love with me. It was also probably to satisfy that somewhat laughable dignity of mine. As he thought of the few days they had spent together as newlyweds all those years ago, Yun Qi could not help but give a quiet chuckle. After that, I had many female soulmates, and as I interacted with them, they would gradually include me in their lives and their thoughts. Even Kei, who was the little demon empress, was the same. But only Xia Qingyu. I bowed to the heavens and earth together with her. I went through trials and tribulations with her, and we even survived life and death situations together. There were so many occasions that I had thought that I had finally completely melted her heart of ice. Especially that one time when I had been swallowed together with her by an enormous beast in the heaven basin. In order to save me, she transferred all her energy into my body and nearly lost her own life as a result. But every time I thought that I had completely walked into her heart, she would leave me with almost no hesitation and return to Frozen Cloud Asgard. And when she saw me again, she still maintained that distance that I was never able to close with her. All those years ago, when he had agreed to enter Frozen Cloud Asgard and become its first male disciple in history, there was one important reason that he was unconsciously harboring, and that was to be able to linger beside Xia Qingyu for as long as he wanted to. She always looked cold and delicate, but her mind was irrefutably her own, and she possesses an incomparable stubbornness. So once she set her mind to something, no one could sway or dissuade her from it. Perhaps it was due to the heart of glazed glass in her body, so she was always subconsciously overlooking everything and every person in this world. So no one could force her to do anything. It was only whether she agreed to do it or not. So what you're saying is that her desire to marry the Moon God Emperor is entirely genuine and of her own accord. Yes, Yun Qi said with a nod of his head, his face devoid of sorrow or joy. 8 years could change many things, but the one thing it could not change was a person's inherent nature and force of will. When Xia Qingyu had made her appearance, her eyes looked exactly the same as they had in his memories, like calm and undisturbed pools of autumn water. On her side, she has done nothing wrong. On the contrary, she made a choice that would have been the absolutely correct choice to make for any woman in this world. The king of the moon god Reem compared to him, I am nothing more than a bug who has just learned how to crawl. To any woman, there is no status more exalted than being the god empress of a king realm. And perhaps this is the protection of heaven that the heart of glazed glass has bestowed upon her. If one were to say that there is a single flaw in that plan, that flaw would be that I am still alive. Yun Qi's words were clear and not forced, and his expression was extremely calm. But it was a calm that caused one's heart to beat faster. Then, why did you still want to pass her that marriage contract? Mu Bingyun asked. Of course, it was to let her know that this flaw exists and to allow her to get rid of it herself after that, Yun Qi said with a bland laugh. It seemed as if Yun Qi had completely recovered his sense of reason. In fact, he was so rational that it was terrifying. But Mu Bingyun's worries were not assured at all as she said, Yun Qi, you really? Don't worry, Yun Qi said as he lifted his head and looked at the scene in front of him. This wedding celebration is huge, so it is not a mere wedding celebration. Rather, it is something that is connected to the dignity and face of the Moon God Emperor and the entire Moon God realm. This place is the Moon God realm. Given my utter weakness, even if I were throw my life away in this place and spill my blood all over this place, it would not be able to change a single thing. On the contrary, it would drag down the Snow Song realm and the Flame God realm together with me. Even if Xia Qingyu wanted to renege on her word, it was already no longer possible. I still have many things that I need to do. I just made a vow with her, so how can I ruin myself here over such a thing? And that's all there is to it. He picked up another jade cup and drained it in one go, and when the jade cup fell to the ground, it instantly shattered. Mu Bingyun's jade hand lightly held on to Yun Qi's arm as she wordlessly attempted to comfort him. Yun Qi, was it truly for such a simple reason that you passed that marriage contract to her? In the clouds far above, the bulk of King Yinger's attention was focused on Yun Qi, so she naturally also took notice of Jin Yue. The distance was far and she had not released any profound strength, so she was not able to completely catch their conversation, but she did manage to hear the words, maidservant of the God Empress. The God Empress maidservant, why did she go to find Yun Qi? Kaina Yinger's eyes fell on the jade box in Jin Yue's hands. Uncle Gu, what did Yun Qi put inside there? Gu Zhu's body did not move, but a strange light flashed in his eyes. In an instant, he slowly said, "It is a marriage contract." "Marriage contract? Fetch it for me to see." Gu Zhu did not say anything, but his old and withered hand was raised up at this moment. Before he made any moves, a strange vortex suddenly appeared in the space in front of him. 5 fingers that were as wizened and shriveled as old firewood came together and slowly submerged themselves into the vortex. After several breaths, Gu Zhu's ancient hand retracted from the vortex, and it disappeared soundlessly, but a rolled-up scroll of paper had appeared in his hand. Below them, Jin Yue's footsteps were hurried, and she had not noticed at all. The jade box in her hand was completely intact, and there were no irregularities that could be detected. Kaina Yinger retrieved the paper scroll, and her eyes swept across the scroll once she opened it. Her phoenix eyes immediately narrowed after she read the contents. Blue Wind Nation, Floating Cloud City, Zio Qi, Xia Qingyu. She rolled up that marriage contract, and her movements were slow and deliberate. Once the marriage contract had been completely rolled up, the corner of her mouth hooked up in an extremely dangerous small smile. To think that such an interesting thing truly exists in this world. "Do we put it back?" Gu Zhu asked. "No," Kaina Yinger said as she put away the marriage contract. "This is such a heavy and grand gift, so we naturally need extract as much use out of it as we can. We have come to the Moon God realm, but we did not bring a fitting wedding gift. So I'll present Buddha with these borrowed flowers and give Yue Wuyuan such a pleasant and enormous surprise." Within the vanishing moon celestial palace, Xia Qingyu sat in front of a mirror, her fingers lightly dancing across its surface. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be lost in reverie, and she seemed to be thinking about something. The internal space within the vanishing moon celestial palace was amazingly big, and countless bright lights flashed within. These bright lights seemed to be attracted by some unseen force as they clustered around Xia Qingyu's celestial figure. There were only 15 minutes left before the wedding ceremony began. Jin Yue carried a jade box as she drew near to her on quiet steps. After that, she stopped behind Xia Qingyu and bowed ceremoniously. "God Empress, I have fulfilled the instructions you have given me a month ago and bestowed upon the Snow Song realm a moon god pellet, handing it over to that Snow Song disciple who goes by the name Yun Qi." "That's good," she calmly replied. "There is also one more thing," Jin Yue said. "Sir Yun Qi also gave this servant a gift to send back to the God Empress. He said that he hoped that the God Empress herself would personally open it." "There's no need for that," she said in a gloomy voice. "You may bring it away." Jin Yue was not surprised at all at her answer, but she recalled something and finally said those words. "Sir Yun Qi also asked this servant to pass the God Empress a message as well. This is the grand congratulatory gift that Floating Clouds Zio Qi has given to the God Empress for her wedding." Once Jin Yue finished speaking, she suddenly felt the world descend into a strange silence. Even the air itself seemed to have congealed as it stopped flowing completely. She raised her head in suspicion, but all she saw was Xia Qingyu's unmoving back, followed by a long period of silence. "God, Empress," she tried calling out to her in a soft voice. But the only response she received was the same stifling silence that had descended on the room. An inexplicable sense of uneasiness suddenly appeared in Jin Yue's heart. Her lips moved, but in this moment she did not dare to give voice to her question. After an indeterminate period of time had passed, Xia Qingyu's voice finally rang in her ears. "The words that you just said to me, repeat them again." "Ah, yes," Jin Yue hurriedly responded as she repeated herself nervously. Sir Yunqi said, "This is the grand congratulatory gift that Floating Clouds Zio Qi has given to the God Empress for her wedding." Her heart wildly thumped in her chest, and her voice was laced with a restless apprehension. Her sole fear was that she had misspoken a single word. "Where is he?" she asked. "He." Jin Yue's wits had become rather addled due to her nervousness. "Is the God Empress referring to Sir Yunqi?" He is seated in the outer seats," Jin Yue replied with even more nervousness. At this moment, she suddenly thought of the reaction Xia Qingyu had had when she had first heard the name Yunqi, and her heart gave a fierce lurch. Xia Qingyu turned around, her beautiful eyes coming to rest on the jade box that Jin Yue had been holding aloft. "Jin Yue, pass it to me." "Yes." Jin Yue walked forward and very carefully placed the jade box in Xia Qingyu's hands. Her appearance seemed as passive and indifferent as usual, but when she opened the jade box, Jin Yue saw that her jade fingers were trembling slightly. The jade box was constructed from moonlight stone, its appearance lustrous and flawless, and the moment that Xia Qingyu took it in her hands, its luster dimmed against her fair skin, which was more lustrous and glossy than white jade itself. The jade box was opened, but there was nothing inside. "There's nothing inside," Xia Qingyu said in a soft voice. "Ah!" Jin Yue was stunned upon hearing that. She hurriedly lifted her face towards the jade box, and upon seeing it, her pretty face lost all of its color. She said in anxious voice, How can it be empty? I personally witnessed Sir Yunqi placing something into this box. Furthermore, this jade box has always been in your servant's hands, and no one has even come into contact with it before you. What did he put inside?" Xia Qingyu asked as a long and slender finger moved around lightly inside the jade box, and her crescent brows twitched nearly imperceptibly. It was a rolled-up scroll of paper. This servant, truly, personally witnessed him putting it inside. Jin Yue was so nervous that she had started to tremble. Xia Qingyu lapsed into a brief period of silence before lightly covering up the jade box. "There are traces of a recent dimensional distortion around the edges of the jade box. The object that was placed inside was seized by someone with an extremely superlative ability to control dimensional energy." She did not get stunned or flustered by this turn of events, nor did she become anxious or angry. From start to finish, she had been extremely calm and placid. It was as if a ripple would never appear in her emotions. "Ah!" Jin Yue's mouth opened wide. She was at a complete loss. "You may leave." She turned around yet again. God, Empress, you may leave. This isn't your fault." One could not hear any emotion in her voice, so at least there was no recrimination in her voice either. "Understood, this servant will take her leave." Jin Yue retreated 2 steps before she left, filled with anxiety and fright. The vanishing moon celestial palace once again became a sea of calm. She stood there quietly as she slowly closed her eyes. The moment her beautiful pair of eyes closed, the world within the vanishing moon celestial palace immediately lost its most gorgeous and beautiful luster. Within that silent world, she remained still for a very long time, and it was as if time itself had come to a standstill, until the sound of footsteps broke that quiet tranquility. "He, Qingyu, it's about to begin, so prepare yourself." The moon god emperor strode over, a heartfelt smile on his face. This might perhaps be the happiest day of his entire life. As the moon god emperor's voice fell, Xia Qingyu's beautiful eyes opened as she slowly turned around. "Foster father, can Qingyu make one request?" "Oh!" Shock and wonder appeared on the moon god emperor's face. "Could foster father please bestow the vanishing moon celestial palace upon Qingyu?" She spoke slowly, each word as light as a cottony cloud. Ha. The moon god emperor let out a hearty laugh as excitement actually appeared on his face. "Qingyu, in all the years you've been here, this is the first time you've requested something from me. Great, this is simply great. It won't be too long before the entire moon god realm belongs to you, much less something as trifling as the vanishing moon celestial palace." King Yu's request had caused the Moon God Emperor's already excellent mood to improve even further. "But since you want it, then I'll give it you right now." Before his voice had even fallen, the Moon God Emperor made a big gesture with his arm as a lustrous white-colored divine light shone out from him before being expelled from his body completely. In an instant, all the lights within the vanishing moon's celestial palace grew dim. The Moon God Emperor made a different gesture, and that pillar of divine light was already flying towards Xia Qingyu before merging into her body. In nearly the same instant, the lustrous lights that had been extinguished for a short period of time flared back to life, causing the internal world of the vanishing moon's celestial palace to be blanketed in a sea of shining white. The vanishing moon's celestial palace was publicly acknowledged within the god realm as the fastest profound warship in existence, and it was also the most precious treasure of the moon god realm. In the past, it had always belonged only to the successive moon god emperors. But right now, Xia Qingyu had only said a single short sentence, and he had not hesitated in the slightest but had simply given it to her. Furthermore, he seemed to have done it with the utmost joy. "I thank foster father for granting my request," she said as she made a slight curtsy. "Heh, as long as you're happy. You don't need to thank me for anything ever," the moon god emperor said with a faint smile before he turned around and said, "The wedding ceremony will begin in about 5 minutes, so make your final preparations. This will be the most important day for the moon god realm over the coming years." "Foster father," Xia Qingyu suddenly blurted out as she stopped the departing moon god emperor in his tracks. "Qingyu has something to say. I beg that you remember this always." "Oh." The moon god emperor swiveled towards her as puzzlement appeared on his face. He could clearly sense that there was something strange about the current Xia Qingyu. But it was perhaps due to the atmosphere surrounding today's event, so it did not arouse too much surprise or suspicion in him. "In the future, no matter what happens, Qingyu will never ever let down the moon god realm." After she said those words, she closed her eyes. Perhaps it was in order to not let the moon god emperor see the disorder that shone deep in her eyes. The moon god emperor's brows twitched as he said, "Qingyu, you..." "Qingyu only wants foster father to forever remember those words. No matter what happens in the future, I beg that foster father remembers these words," she continued. Every word was exceedingly soft, as if she was inside a dream. Suspicion blossomed in his heart as the moon god emperor stood there with a blank expression on his face. But in the end, he did not question her but laughed happily instead. "Qingyu, with these words of yours, even if that prophecy made by the heavenly mystery realm happens tomorrow, I no longer have any regrets." The moon god emperor left, but Xia Qingyu remained where she was standing, silent and still. Both of her eyes were tightly closed, and they did not open for a long while. Half of her world was filled with a boundless pale white light, and the other half was filled with a seemingly infinite void. She stood at the junction between those two worlds. Gradually, even her own figure was swallowed up by those two worlds, and all that remained was a patch of pale white emptiness. Star God Realm, Heavenly Slaughter Star God Palace. "Big sister," Kejai's light and airy voice rang out in the distance before she appeared before Jasmine, her small face flushed red with excitement. "Why are you so excited?" Jasmine asked as she glanced at her. "Big sister, I finally know what kind of person the Moon God Emperor's new God Empress is. It's actually someone who possesses the heart of snow-glazed glass," Kejai said with much excitement. "The legendary heart of glazed glass. To think that it's appeared once more." Yet Jasmine's reaction was incomparably cool and indifferent. "Oh, is it? HMPH? No wonder that old villain Yue Wuya." Jasmine had only completed half her sentence before she suddenly stopped. Her eyes turned towards Kejai as she asked, "Do you know what that God Empress name is?" "Of course I know," Kejai said with a nod of her head. "The Moon God Emperor called her Qingyu." Jasmine's entire body went completely rigid before she suddenly thrust herself to her feet. "Ah," Jasmine's suddenly restless and roiling aura gave Kejai a big shock. "Big sis, what's wrong?" Jasmine's brows sank extremely low as she tightly grabbed onto Kejai's arm as she instantly pulled her to her feet. "Follow me." "Ah, where to?" "The Moon God Realm." The time that signaled the start of the wedding ceremony grew closer and closer, and all of the heroes of the Eastern Divine region had begun to wait with bated breath. At this time, two people walked into the outer seats side by side. There were millions of people seated in the outer seats. Their voices created a clamorous din, and their auras mixed together riotously. But when these two people arrived, they attracted countless gazes. because their moon god robes were marked with a white golden divine moon mark, which radiated a formless nobility and oppressive might. Even though these people were all seated in the outer seats, every single one of them was the biggest fish in their respective star realms, and not a single one of them had an ordinary background. But as these two people walked into their midst, they held their heads high and looked down on everyone around them, assuming a stance that these people were beneath their dignity. It was as if two arrogant emperors who lorded over all creation and looked down on the masses had arrived in their midst. Wherever they passed, it caused the powerful individuals of the eastern divine region, who were near them, to shiver. From the distance, a young, profound practitioner who looked at the two people walking past said with much discontent, "Who are these two people? They seem awfully puffed up. You are not to speak nonsense." The old man beside him hurriedly suppressed his voice with the greatest speed before saying in a low voice, "Those two people are the emperor's children." "The emperor's children?" The young, profound practitioner said in a greatly shocked voice. "The moon god robes they are wearing, and the divine moon mark inscribed in those clothes, are the symbols of their status as the children of a god emperor." The old man said in a deep voice, "The aura of their life force is only about 100 years, so they should be the two youngest sons of the moon god emperor." "That's strange. What are these two princes doing in the outer seats?" The figures of both men were similar. The one on the left had long, narrow eyes, his grave and stern face radiating power and prestige, while the one on the right walked with a crooked smile on his face, a face which radiated an arrogance that seemed to have been inborn. The auras of the two men's life forces were around 100 years, but the profound energy that roiled about their bodies caused fear and apprehension to appear in the hearts of everyone around them. Third level of the divine king realm. 100-year-old divine kings were genuine geniuses, even in the context of a king realm. Besides, they were also the incomparably exalted scions of a god emperor. 361st Prince Yue Huan, 362nd Prince Yue Jingxi. These were the outer seats where the middle and lower star realms were seated. So no matter whether it was profound strength or status, they were like emperors descending from the heavens. Everywhere they went, the gathered profound practitioners they walked past all kept quiet in fear and trembled. At the same time, everyone was wondering why they had come to such a place. The two men walked past the rows of seats under the furtive scrutiny of countless eyes. They walked to where the snow song and flame god realms were seated before coming to stop behind Yun Qi. "You are Yun Qi, aren't you?" The prince, who had an arrogant look on his face, Yue Jingxi, measured Yun Qi with a glance. His eyes narrowed slightly as he completely ignored the people around Yun Qi. Yun Qi turned his body slightly as his gaze swept over the two men. He said in a cold and indifferent voice, "That's me." HMPH, I had thought that the famous, conferred god #1 and child of the heavens would be seated in either the main hall or the outer hall. Who would have thought that he would actually be seated in the outer seats? It has really caused this prince to run around while trying to find you. However, given your background, being seated here is actually quite appropriate. The moment Yue Jingxi started talking, every word and every single glance and expression he made were filled with arrogance. As the child of a god emperor, he naturally had the capital and qualifications to be more domineering and haughty than anyone else. Even given Yun Qi's status as the conferred god #1, in Yue Jingxi's eyes, he was only worth a couple more glances. He put heavy emphasis on the two words, "this prince," to deliberately impress his status upon Yun Qi. Yun Qi's gaze swept across the divine moon marks on their clothes, but he did not give them a second glance. He slowly and leisurely filled up the jade cup in his hand before he asked Hugh Ruli, "Who are these two fools?" Yun Qi's words shocked Hugh Ruli so greatly that his beard trembled with vigor. The jaws of countless people surrounding him also hit the floor in shock. Hugh Ruli's forehead was filled with sweat as he said in an anxious voice, "Yun Qi, they are the children of the moon god emperor." He had originally thought that because Yun Qi had not come into contact with the moon god realm often, he did not recognize the moon god robes that the two princes wore, which was the only reason he would dare act in such a manner. But to his complete and utter surprise, Yun Qi's eyebrows and expression did not even twitch upon hearing what he had to say. Furthermore, those few words of his had greatly shocked the people of the snow song realm, the flame god realm, and all the people around him, causing area which encompassed the outer seats to go completely quiet in an instant. The moon god princes were such personages that even if it was someone from an upper star realm or king realm, they still definitely would not say such a thing to them. Yue Huan and Yue Jingxi's faces immediately went dark upon hearing those words. Yue Jingxi took a step forward, and just as the fury displayed on his face looked like it was about to soar, it quickly receded. Instead, it was replaced by a cold, mocking grin. "Yun Qi, do you know who you're talking to?" "Of course I do," Yun Qi said as he waved the jade cup in his hand. "I'm talking to two utterly disgraceful fools." Thud, the jaws which everyone had just managed to close once again hit the floor with great force. "Yun Qi, they are—" Just as Mu Huanji was about to speak out, he was restrained by a gaze from Mu Bingyun, who shook her head at him. She was well aware that countless erupting volcanoes were spewing out underneath Yun Qi's calm exterior. When these two people had sauntered over here with their looks of contempt and arrogant attitudes, they had already thrown themselves onto the head of a spear. Furthermore, they were actually the children of the Moon God Emperor himself. Forget it, just let him vent. Hopefully his heart will feel soothed by this, even if only by just a little bit. "You—" Those two sentences, which had caused him extreme disgrace, caused Yue Jingxi to be unable to retain his so-called princely manner. He was completely agitated and enraged as he roared, "Yun Qi, do you believe that just because of those two sentences of yours, this prince has 10,000 ways to ensure that you won't be able to leave the Moon God realm alive today?" Yun Qi's eyes grew slanted at those words, and anyone could tell that he was clearly giving Yue Jingxi a look, one reserved for a complete idiot. "Then what if I'm able to leave this place alive and kicking today?" "It looks like you won't weep till you've seen your own coffin," Yue Jingxi said with narrowed eyes as his right hand slowly contorted into a claw. "Then this prince will make sure that you won't ever be able to leave the Moon God realm right this instant." A moon-white profound light immediately began shining within Yue Jingxi's hand as he released the startling oppressive might of a divine king. He was actually going to lash out in anger. "Jingxi!" Yue Huan's hand shot out, and it pressed down on his brother's shoulder as he said in a deep voice, "Today is the day of royal father's wedding. By taking action now, are you trying to incur the wrath of our royal father?" Yue Huan's words were like a bucket of cold water, causing Yue Jingxi to instantly regain his composure. The profound light in his hand swiftly vanished, but his eyes were vicious as they stared at Yun Qi. He was the one who was looking for death. Insulting this prince is the same as insulting our Moon God realm. Yue Huan strode forward, a dreadful tyranny reflected in his calm eyes. "Yun Qi, this prince is the 361st prince of the Moon God realm Yue Huan. This is this prince's royal younger brother Yue Jingxi. The reason we have come here is to present to you a message on behalf of our big brother." The big brother that Yue Huan spoke about caused shock to reverberate in everyone's heart. There was naturally only one person whom the other Moon God princes would call Big Brother. Moon God Crown Prince Yue Xuanj. He was the oldest son of the Moon God Emperor, the Crown Prince of the Moon God realm, and among the Moon God Emperor's progeny, he was also the only one to have made it to the Divine Master realm. At the present moment, he was one of the Moon God envoys. Because of his status as the Moon God Crown Prince, he was also the only one among the Moon God envoys to have a comparable status to the 12 Moon Gods. Yue Xuanj is the Moon God Crown Prince, and he is also one of the 36 Moon God envoys of the Moon God realm. Mu Bingyun sent a sound transmission to Yun Qi. Yue Huan finished speaking, but Yun Qi did not react in the way he desired and anticipated. Instead, Yun Qi gave a cold laugh as he said, "Since he said that he had something to say to me, then why didn't he come himself? Could it be that he's a mute?" Mu Huanj's legs went soft, and he nearly fell headfirst to the floor beneath the table. "Yun Qi!" The color of Yan Juhai's face changed dramatically as he anxiously cried out Yun Qi's name. In his eyes, even though Yun Qi had a stubborn and unyielding personality, he was also not a person who easily lost his head. He had definitely not even met Yue Xuanj in person once, and it was more likely than not that he had only first heard that name today, yet he actually went as far as to ridicule him. Yue Huan's brows sank fiercely, but beside him Yue Jingxi had broken out into a fit of laughing rage. "Heh, heh, heh, H-A-H-A-H-A-H-A-H-A. Did you hear that? This kid became the so-called conferred god #1, and he's completely let it go to his head. To think that he would even actually dare to insult our big brother, ha 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 ha." Yue Huan's already long and narrow eyes narrowed into slits as he slowly said, "Big brother asked this prince to send this message to you. He is full of admiration for you over the matter of you rejecting the lady goddess. In the future, you had better carve this into your memory. Stay as far away as you can from the lady goddess, because the lady goddess is not a person that can be polluted by some trash. The surrounding area grew even more quiet. The words that Yue Huan had said caused everyone's hearts to shake, but at the same time, they did not surprise them in the least. As someone who had seen Xianxia Yinger's true appearance, Yue Xuanj was infatuated with her, and this had long ago become a well-known fact in the Eastern Divine region. Xianxia Yinger was the Brahma Heaven God Emperor's daughter, while Yue Xuanj was the Moon God Emperor's son, and he was the Moon God Crown Prince at that. In Yue Xuanj's eyes, he and Xianxia Yinger were an appropriate match, and he was one of the rare people in this universe that was worthy of obtaining the goddess. After the conferred god battle, the Brahma Heaven God Emperor had suddenly suggested marrying the goddess to Yun Qi. This matter had caused huge ripples across the entire god realm, igniting the fire of jealous hatred in the hearts of countless others, and among these was naturally Yue Xuanj. In the clouds high above, Gu Zhu, who observed it all, uttered cryptically, "Even though Miss has not shown her face for many years already, the world is still in chaos because of Miss." Xianxia Yinger responded in a cold and indifferent manner. "Men are truly pathetic creatures. However, this actually isn't a bad opportunity." Xianxia Yinger extended her slender fingers, the marriage contract trapped between them. Her gaze gradually drifted in the direction of the main hall. That was where all the honored guests of the King Realm were seated. "Have you finished speaking?" Yun Qi still had not reacted in any obvious way, but the look of revulsion on his face as he spoke to them made it seem as if he was dealing with two disgusting flies. "If you've finished, then get out of here." "You bastard!" If not for the fact that today was a special occasion, Yue Jinxi would have gone berserk a long time ago. But now that it had come to this, even if his self-restraint was 10 times better than it previously was, it would not have been enough to hold back the fire that raged around in his chest. He stared at Yun Qi like a furious emperor would stare at an impudent commoner and snarled. This prince has truly seen it all today. To think that such a reckless and impudent thing existed in this world. Just because he obtained that so-called conferred god number 1, he actually dares to have the audacity to even insult and look down on our moon god realm. Yue Jinxi said with a cold smile. "Oh, that's right. This prince heard that you were born in the lowly and inferior lower realms, and you haven't been in the god realm for more than a few years. So it's not surprising that you're stupid enough to not understand what kind of existence our moon god realm is." "Heh!" The corners of Yun Qi's lips curved up slightly as a strange and dangerous light flashed in his eyes. "Do you know why us king realms have never participated in the profound god convention?" The fires of Yue Jinxi's rage slowly extinguished itself. It was as if he realized that getting so angry at Yun Qi was self-degrading by nature. "Because it is beneath our contempt. You obtained that conferred god number 1, and in other star realms, that is indeed something impressive that you can show off. But in the eyes of this prince, and in the eyes of our moon god realm, it is no more than a fart, do you understand?" There were more and more people who were looking in this direction, so Yue Jinxi's words caused indignation to suddenly appear on many profound practitioners' faces. Conferred god number 1, the strongest individual of his generation within the Eastern Divine region, was no more than a fart to him. If you were to just take the words at face value, it was something that merely insulted Yun Qi. But if you were to look deeper, these were words that insulted all the star realms that were below the king realms. This was especially true since Yun Qi was also the first person to have obtained the title of conferred god number 1, while entering the competition as a disciple from a middle star realm. So he was the pride of all the middle and lower star realms. Yue Jinxi's words ignited the fires of rage in the hearts of all who heard it, even if there were some of them who were quietly unhappy or envious of Yun Qi. It was just that Yue Jinxi's status as a moon god prince was there for all to see, so they did not dare give voice to their anger. Yue Huan had perceived that the words Yue Jinxi had just said were rather inappropriate, so he slapped his back. "Forget it. Today is Royal Father's big day. It's not good for us to incite something. He's not worth it anyways." "HMPH, my royal brother is right indeed," Yue Jinxi said with a sneer. "Yun Qi, if you had truly become the foster son of the Dragon Monarch, even if you were only an adopted son, you would still be just about worthy enough for this prince to take more than one look at you. Alas, it is truly a pity that you are not, though." "Oh, that's right, that's right." It was as if he had suddenly thought of something, but Yue Jingxi's cold sneer actually grew warm as he said, "I heard that you are also some sort of child of the heavens. Tusk, 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 tusk. Do you know how much effort this prince needs to expend to squash you, this child of the heavens?" He slowly extended his pinky before he started howling with abandon. Ha 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 ha. "Let's leave," Yue Huan said before he shot a cold glance at Yun Qi. "Yun Qi, you should rejoice in the fact that today is our royal father's wedding day. Otherwise, even if you don't die, you can forget about walking away from here completely intact." But with that being said, he measured the profound energy radiating from Yun Qi before he gave a dull laugh. "Even if today was not royal father's wedding, we also would not personally do anything to you because you are far from worthy." "Oh, is that so?" Yun Qi's body turned yet again as he looked at him impassively. "Then when will I be worthy?" "Heh, probably 100 years from now. But that's only if you live that long." Yue Huan gave a cold laugh of contempt before continuing. "If you can survive until then, this prince would be willing to grant you a chance to duel this prince." "Since that's the case," Yun Qi said while coming to his feet and directly striding towards the two great princes, "we won't need to wait for 100 years. I challenge you right here and now." Once those words were uttered, it threw the crowd into disarray. "Yun Qi, don't be impulsive." When he saw that the two princes were preparing to leave, Huo Ruli and the rest had finally breathed a big sigh of relief. Yet Yun Qi actually stood up and challenged them himself. Furthermore, without even mentioning the fact that this was in Divine Moon City, on the Moon God Emperor's wedding day itself. These two men were definitely not some idiots who merely coasting on their status as princes. They were level 3 divine kings. Either one of them far outstripped all of the conferred god candidates. "You're challenging my royal brother, just you? Ha 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 ha." Yue Jingxi looked as if he had heard the world's most amusing joke, and he laughed so hard that he rocked back and forth. "Royal brother, did you hear what he just said? Ha 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 ha. Heh." Yue Huan's expression did not change, and he spoke in an indifferent voice. "I heard that you were able to beat Luo Changsheng, who had just become a divine king with profound strength in the divine spirit realm. So you indeed do possess some ability. However, you can't be so naive as to think that this prince is the same as that trash Luo Changsheng. Heh heh. This prince bestows upon you one chance, a chance to retract the words that you have just spoken." "So that is to say that you don't dare to?" Yun Qi said, as the corners of his lips hooked up into a smile. "It is you who is unworthy," Yue Huan said with a bland smile. "Ha ha ha." This time it was Yun Qi's turn to let out a cold laugh. His eyebrows and the corners of his mouth formed a deep arc which expressed his profound contempt and disdain. "From the way both of you spoke, I had actually thought the two of you were some kind of big shots. But it turns out that the two of you are just a bunch of gutless wonders who only know how to boast windily and coast by on your status as moon god princes, but who don't dare take any actual action. You..." Yue Huan's brows sank together so fiercely that they nearly collided with one another as he snatched up his palm. Yun Qi's words caused his already shocked audience to go even more pale with shock. As he faced the two ashen-faced princes, Yun Qi still continued to force the issue. He extended his thumb and pointed it downwards before saying, "You disparaged my title as conferred god number 1, yet you do not dare to accept my challenge. To think that this distinguished moon god realm would also have such laughable and idiotic garbage, and to think it would actually turn out to be one of their so-called princes. Hee, I truly feel ashamed of the two of you on the moon god realm's behalf right now." Realm, it had always been them looking down on the masses with contempt. When had they ever suffered such a humiliation? Yue Huan, who considered himself a very steady-minded person, had his whole body shaking at this time. As he had a rush of blood to the head, his ghastly pale face quickly turned crimson. "Since you want to die so badly, this prince will fulfill your wish." Profound energy spontaneously erupted from him as he unleashed a punch. Yue Huan had made his move in fury. Since this punch of his was too sudden, and the two of them were only 2 steps away from each other, Yun Qi seemed to be completely unable to react in time, and the fist struck right at the center of his chest. Bang! Just imagine how terrifying the power of a divine king would be when they attack someone in fury. The eruption of their aura in that instant could be called world-alarming. Yun Qi was blown as far as a kilometer away, crashing into numerous seats on his way. Numerous seats were smashed to powder, causing a great disturbance as pieces of jade flew around in a disordered manner. The sudden sound of the aura eruption caused the entire Divine Moon City to become absolutely silent immediately. All the people of the many star realms who were present in the outer seating area, outer hall, and even main hall shifted their gazes over to this place. This place was the core area of the Moon God realm. The great wedding of the Moon God Emperor was going to be held on this day, so they were surprised to discover that someone had actually dared start a fight at such a place and time. Xianxia slowly got up from the pile of ruins. There was a scarlet bloodstain at the corner of his mouth. He didn't reach out his hand to wipe it off or counterattack in anger. Instead, a faint, eerie smile emerged on his face. Yue Huan was already regretting after unleashing the punch. He sensed the surroundings become quiet at once, and countless gazes pricking at him like knives, making his back feel a chill all of a sudden. But thinking of Xianxia's attitude and words just now, his face turned gloomy once again as he let out a snort. The attention of all the moon guards and moon god envoys in the vicinity had focused at this side of the city. They were just about to rush over when a sudden, low shout caused their bodies to shake intensely and firmly stop in place. "What is going on?" This voice contained such coercion that it instantly made everyone feel suffocated. The gloomy-looking Yue Huan and Yue Jingxi shivered upon hearing it, and their expressions changed suddenly. It was because the source of the low shout was none other than the Moon God Emperor himself. Before the shout vanished into the air, a sky-shrouding mighty force poured down from above their heads. The two people raised their heads subconsciously to see the Moon God Emperor high in the sky above them, with an angry look in his eyes. He glanced at the two of them, and then at Xianxia, who had just stood up in the distance, as blood oozed from the corner of his mouth. His expression became incomparably dark. "Yue Huan, Jingxi, the grand event on this day is not only related to this king, but also to the future of the Moon God realm. You actually dared act so unbridled and even hurt an honored guest. Who gave you permission to behave like this?" The anger of a god emperor was no trivial matter. Yue Huan was already regretting attacking someone in his extreme anger, but who would have thought that his action would directly provoke the Moon God Emperor? The two princes kneeled down in a flurry. Royal father, please calm your anger." It was Xianxia who spoke offensive words first. "This child just lost control over himself for a moment. Royal father, calm your anger. This child understands that he has committed a mistake." They thought that the Moon God Emperor was only being polite in front of everyone to call someone like Xianxia an honored guest. But they didn't know that Xianxia really deserved to be called so in Moon God Emperor's opinion. The God Emperors, as the existences of the highest level in the God realm, were much clearer than anyone about the meaning of the heavenly mystery realm's prophecy. On this day, he had even specially instructed his subordinates to bring Xianxia into the main hall. After the conferred God battle, every great king realm was racking its brain to rope Xianxia in, and the dragon monarch wanted to take in him as his adopted child even. But Yue Huan and Yue Jingxi, these youngest sons of his, actually punched him in the presence of all the people, and on such an auspicious occasion too. Seeing such a thing had brought him close to flying into a rage. "You still dare quibble?" The Moon God Emperor grew even angrier. "Do you no longer care about this royal father of yours? This child won't dare quibble with you," Yue Huan said in a frightened voice. He pointed towards Xianxia. "Xianxia not only spoke offensive words to your child, he also insulted Big Brother and the Moon God realm. If it wasn't so, I wouldn't dare fight during the wedding ceremony of Royal Father, no matter how courageous he was." The Moon God Emperor raised his brows as his eyes turned to Xianxia. Yue Huan and Yue Jingxi were two of the outstanding people among his descendants. Yue Jingxi was a bit arrogant and willful, but Yue Huan had always been steady. If he didn't lose his reason due to extreme anger, he definitely wouldn't have the guts to start a fight here. With his hands on his chest, Xianxia slowly stood straight in place and said in an unhurried voice, "There is no enmity between me and the two respected princes, and I haven't even seen this big brother they speak of. They suddenly came over to my place and claimed that they have come to warn me on behalf of their big brother to stay far away from the Lady Goddess. That is it. Later, they also ridiculed me by saying that my achievement as conferred God #1 is nothing in the eyes of their Moon God realm." The Moon God Emperor frowned upon hearing the first half of his words, but the last few words caused his barely suppressed anger to shoot up. All the profound practitioners, from the lower to the upper star realms, also revealed anger on their faces. "I did no more than say a few things in rebuttal, and they immediately attacked me in return. They are truly quite domineering, just as you would expect of the princes of the moon god realm. It seems that anyone who isn't from a king realm doesn't even have the worth to be looked at by the princes, Xianxia said in a cold voice. Each and every word of Xianxia's was tinged with ridicule. But as all the outstanding individuals of the Eastern Divine region were present at the place, and watching the whole thing with anger in their eyes, how could the Moon God Emperor reprimand Xianxia for speaking like this? His gaze turned gloomy as he shouted in a stern voice, "You two really said such things?" Yue Huan gnashed his teeth as his body turned cold. He could vaguely feel that he was likely set up by Xianxia. Yue Jingxi shivered as he said while stammering, It was a momentary slip of the tongue. You scoundrel!" The Moon God Emperor flew into a rage when he heard Yue Jingxi's words of acknowledgement. As people from a king realm, they definitely had the qualifications to look down on others. But to voice such thoughts and be heard by the outstanding individuals of the Eastern Divine region was a completely different matter. Although Xianxia isn't from a king realm, this king has personally witnessed him obtaining his title of Conferred God Number 1. And he is also the pride of this generation of our Eastern Divine region. How could you dare humiliate him so? Every word of the Moon God Emperor's was soul-suppressing. You speaking such words is no different from insulting the whole Eastern Divine region. Hurry up and apologize to Xianxia. Yue Huan and Yue Jingxi raised their heads as they remained dumbstruck. They were basically unable to believe their ears. That distinguished princes of the Moon God realm like them would actually have to apologize to a profound practitioner from a middle star realm. However, Xianxia suddenly said at this time, "I don't need an apology. I am an insignificant profound practitioner from a lower realm, so I really don't deserve to receive an apology from the respected princes. But there's something that I'd like to ask of the Moon God Emperor." "Oh." The Moon God Emperor raised his brows. He had watched Xianxia's whole journey from a cheater to the Conferred God Number 1. This guy was a genuine monster, and also had the temper of one. Xianxia narrowed his eyes to slits. The two respected princes claimed that the title of Conferred God Number 1 was worth nothing in their eyes, and then also said that I don't deserve to exchange moves with them. It seems that the cultivation of the two respected princes is extraordinarily high without a doubt, and a Conferred God Number 1, like me, doesn't even have the qualification to be noticed by them. It is rare to be able to enter the Moon Good realm and getting the chance to see the two respected princes as well. There is no way I, Xianxia, could miss such a precious opportunity. So I ask for advice from the two respected princes in order to properly understand the difference between me and them. At the same time, it could also be considered as an event to liven things up on this day of the Moon God Emperor's grand marriage. Xianxia, Mu Huanji, and others had a very anxious look on their faces. Unlike just a while ago, Xianxia was challenging the princes in front of everyone right now. So long as the Moon God Emperor agreed to it, he wouldn't be able to go back on his words. They were princes of a king realm and were level 3 divine kings. The Moon God Emperor glanced at Xianxia. He slowly nodded and said straightforwardly, "All right, Yue Huan, you spar with Xianxia. If you lose, you'll be severely punished. If you win, I'll forgive your misdeed today." Hearing his words, Yue Huan was startled first, and then overjoyed as he promptly responded, "Understood. This child will follow Royal Father's command." The fear in his heart swept away like retreating tide water, and he muttered inwardly, "How can I possibly lose to someone who is merely at the 5th level of the Divine Spirit realm? Royal Father is siding with me here, after all." Xianxia was quite surprised to see the Moon God Emperor so readily agree to his request, before he said, "Moon God Emperor seems to have misunderstood me. What I meant just now was to face both princes." While the people were immediately shocked several times greater than earlier, Xianxia slowly raised his hand and pointed to Yue Huan and Yue Jingxi. "You two come at me together." Has Xianxia lost his mind? The two princes are level 3 divine kings, you know. There is much more to their strength. The divine moon art and the heavenly breaking jade art of the Moon God realm are the topmost level profound arts of the Eastern Divine region. Although Xianxia was able to crush Luo Changsheng, it is almost impossible for him to win against either one of the two great princes. Even Mu Bingyun's eyes were quivering at this time, and she repeatedly thought about persuading him against doing such a thing. Everyone in the Eastern Divine region knew that Xianxia was able to defeat Luo Changsheng, who was at the 1st level of the Divine King realm with his lower cultivation of the 5th level of the Divine Spirit realm. Luo Changsheng might be the youngest Divine King of the Eastern Divine region, but he had just entered the Divine King realm when Xianxia had defeated him, and it was likely that even his foundation was unconsolidated at the time. These two princes, on the other hand, had been at the Divine King realm for nearly 50 years, and had also practiced the topmost level profound art of a king realm. There was no way Luo Changsheng could compare to them. It would be hard to believe in his victory even when he was fighting just one of them, let alone facing the two at the same time. The absolute majority of the crowd present had watched the conferred god battle with their own eyes, but they still felt that Xianxia was simply talking like a crazy person. The hearts of Yue Huan and Yue Jingxi were filled with anger, hate, and discomfort, but when they heard Xianxia's words, they almost laughed aloud. They suddenly started to feel that there was some problem with this Xianxia's brain. Thinking back to his words and attitude earlier, this feeling only got stronger and stronger. If there wasn't some problem with his brain, how could the profound practitioner of a trivial middle star realm dare clash with and insult princes of the moon god realm such as them? The moon god emperor gave Xianxia a glance before he slowly nodded his head again. In that case, we'll do as you ask. However, since it's an event to liven things up, there is no need for weapons. Okay. Xianxia indifferently nodded his head. Yue Huan Jingxi, this whole thing started because of you, so you have to do as he wishes. Spar with him to express your apology, the moon god emperor said in a plain voice. As I stated just now, if you lose, you'll be severely punished. If you win, I'll forgive your misdeed today. Understood, royal father. Yue Huan and Yue Jingxi answered at the same time with an unusual look in their eyes. At least, there was no fear within them now. Standing above the clouds, Xianxia Yinger coldly snorted. These two are really idiots. She picked up the marriage contract between her fingers and sealed it with her profound energy. Afterwards, her slender fingers lightly danced in the air as she quickly imprinted a few rows of golden words on the surface of the profound energy it was enveloped with. Her eyes turned to the main hall. Now that everyone is distracted, this is an absolutely great chance for us. I'll send it to Xing Jukong, and given his wisdom, he will naturally know how to make use of it. Ha ha, Gu Zhu let out a dry laugh. There was emotion contained within his long, drawn-out sigh. Using the southern divine region to kill the heavenly slaughter star god with poison. Using the heavenly wolf star god to get the world-defying heavenly manual. Using the incident of Yue Wugu to cause both the star god realm and moon god realm suffer. Having the god emperor mention Xianxia as your marriage candidate. And consequently, making him the enemy of countless people. Also that he is forced to enter the Brahma heaven god realm. And now, making the star god emperor also willingly use his mouth for Miss' sake. The profound way of Miss has clearly reached the ultimate level of the world. Without even putting in any real effort, you can always cause great changes in the world effort. Even this old man can't help but feel admiration. Xianxia Yinger said with an indistinct smile, unless there's absolutely no way out, never reveal your trump cards. It was you who told me this over and over again in the past. She lightly pushed forward her jade-like hand that seemed to be covered in chilly snow. Immediately, the marriage contract with bizarre golden words slowly drifted downward. It appeared to be carried by the breeze, but it entered into the main hall with incomparable accuracy and fell right before the star god emperor. When it began to fall, the profound energy left on it completely disappeared, too. Even someone as capable as a god emperor would definitely be unable to track down the one who sent it. He reached out his hand and grabbed the marriage contract. Seeing the golden words floating on it, the star god emperor narrowed his eyes a bit as they released a dangerous and unusual light. Then he slowly opened the marriage contract. Brother Yun's behavior is very odd today, Huo Poyan said in a low voice. There was a deeply anxious look in his eyes. Don't say anything else, Huo Ruli said. Thinking of the exchange of words between Xianxia and Mu Bingyun, he was filled with apprehension right now. Jingxi, you go first. Yue Huan patted Yue Jingxi's shoulder, then took a few steps backward. What a joke. Xianxia might be trying to court death by losing his mind in arrogance and wanting to face the two of them together. However, as princes of the moon god realm, as well as level 3 divine kings, how could they truly do so? Especially against a profound practitioner who was not only from a place lower than a king realm, but was also just at the 5th level of divine spirit realm. Doing such a thing would be degrading their own identities and would lose face in front of others. Yue Jingxi didn't refuse. He had a stomach full of anger and was dying to teach Xianxia a harsh lesson. He stretched out his hand towards Xianxia, indicating for him to make the first move. "Since you so want to receive our guidance this much, come, let's get this started." Xianxia didn't utter a word in response. His figure shot up into the air as he punched straight towards Yue Jingxi's head. Even when facing the profound aura of the mid-stage divine spirit realm head-on, Yue Jingxi didn't feel the least bit constricted. He stayed still in place and only reached out with his right hand unhurriedly, with a domineering expression on his face. It was apparent that he wanted to stop Xianxia's attack, which seemed to contain all his power in a very carefree and relaxed manner. On the other side, Yue Huan had his arms crossed across his chest, and no fluctuation of profound energy could be sensed from his body. He simply didn't appear to have the intention of fighting Xianxia. Xianxia's speed was very fast, and he arrived before Yue Jingxi in the blink of an eye. Yue Jingxi narrowed his eyes as his stretched-out palm grabbed at Xianxia's fist with lightning speed. A light sound rang out. Suddenly, his palm only swept through the air, and an afterimage was speedily dispersing before his eyes. On the other hand, Xianxia's figure had rushed towards Yue Huan in an incomparably strange way. He opened the gate of rumbling heaven as profound energy erupted from his body all of a sudden. His speed became several times faster, and he sent a straight punch towards Yue Huan's chest. What? As if a volcano had erupted in front of them, the nearby profound practitioners of the Eastern Divine region were blown far, far away, and the expressions of Yue Jingxi and Yue Huan abruptly changed at the same time. It wasn't that the two of them hadn't seen the profound image of the conferred god battle, but that watching the profound image and personally facing the spirit pressure erupted by Xianxia were two completely different concepts. Despite being divine kings of a king realm, both of them were so utterly panic-stricken that they began to feel suffocated. Yue Huan was, after all, a level 3 divine king. Confronting the sudden attack from Xianxia, his profound energy unleashed almost instinctively, and he somehow managed to raise his crossed arms in front of his chest. Bang! Yue Huan's arms were firmly struck aside as Xianxia's punch landed right at the center of his chest. Yue Huan's back protruded all of a sudden, after which, a streak of blood spurted out like an arrow released from a bowstring. He was instantly blown a few kilometers away. "Royal brother!" Yue Jingxi turned around at once. He was completely dumbfounded as his pupils contracted in great confusion. Yue Huan propped himself up with his arms. He was just trying to get up when he once again kneeled on the ground as blood continuously trickled out of his mouth. His vision was blurry, and he could barely see the color of his blood. It was as if countless volcanoes had erupted within his body. His entire body shivered, and he found it simply unbelievable that his divine king-level body was actually injured to such an extent by just a punch from Xianxia. It was even more unbelievable that Xianxia, who was only at the mid-stage divine spirit realm, was able to unleash such terrifying power. Compared to his injuries, it was the feeling of shame that he felt even more intensely, which was gnawing at his mind like devils or ghosts. Yue Jingxi was dumbstruck. Yue Huan was still kneeling on the ground, and the moon guards and moon god envoys around them were all totally shocked. Profound images were, after all, no more than just a projection of image. Without seeing it with their own eyes, no one would think that Xianxia's profound strength at the divine spirit realm could shoot up to such a terrifying extent. Xianxia didn't take advantage of the dumbfounded Yue Jingxi to launch another attack at him. It was as if he felt it beneath him to do such a thing. He said in a cold voice, "Considering how you look down on us profound practitioners who aren't from a king realm, I thought that you too would be quite powerful. Is this all you've got?" Xianxia had done enough preparation to allow him to act like this. He had angered the two princes, made them say improper remarks and attack him in rage, and then he purposely let himself get hurt, too. But even if it was so, his words still caused numerous profound practitioners to feel nervous in their hearts. In the end, this place was Divine Moon City, and the two people he was facing were none other than sons of the Moon God Emperor. How could he ridicule them in such a manner? However, there was no fluctuation of emotions on the face of Moon God Emperor. Instead, an unusual light flashed through the depths of his eyes. It was at this time that Yue Huan finally managed to stand on his feet. He was panting heavily as a layer of lustrous light, like that of a bright moon, shone on his body. "Divine moon art!" Many profound practitioners cried out in a low voice. "Xianxia, you..." He wanted to call Xianxia out for his underhanded sneak attack, But the moment he opened his mouth, he immediately swallowed the words together with his blood. It was because he knew that shouting them aloud would only cause him to be looked down upon even more. Forcibly suppressing his injuries and his chaotic, profound aura, he roared in a slightly hoarse voice, "Jinxie, let's face him together with all our power." The instant he finished his words, a white figure flashed before his eyes all of a sudden. Yun-Chi had already rushed over to him like lightning. The chilly, blue profound light on his body made him feel as if he had fallen into an ice-cold abyss. Yue Huan's eyes widened in fear. There was no way he would be careless any longer, no matter how foolish he was. He thrust his arms out and unleashed all of his profound energy, but due to being severely injured and afraid, he subconsciously took a completely defensive stance. Bang, 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 bang. Yun-Chi's had a chilly look in his eyes. The energy he possessed after entering the rumbling heaven state bombarded Yue Huan's body like a torrential rainfall. Yue Huan was barely holding on as he constantly retreated in the face of such fierce attacks. His injuries grew a bit more severe with every step he took backwards, and gradually, blood started oozing out of his nostrils and ears. Yue Jinxie's face had become red. While Yun-Chi and Yue Huan were fighting, he had channeled the Divine Moon art to its limit. Following, all the power of Divine Moon gathered at his right arm, causing it to release brilliant white light, like that from a jade stone. A look of viciousness flashed through his eyes. His speed exploded in an instant, as his right arm, which had the terrifying divine power concentrated around it, aimed at the center of Yun-Chi's back. "Behind you!" Huo Poyun cried out unconsciously. However, it was already too late for a warning as Yue Jinxie's speed was really too fast. In less than 1/10 of a second, his right arm, which had divine light gathered around it, attacked straight toward the center of Yun-Chi's back. Then his arm passed right through him and firmly smashed into Yue Huan's lower abdomen. "Yue!" Yue Huan curled his body in pain as he was once again blown far, far away, and was unable to stand up for a long while. He wasn't severely injured by Yun-Chi's punch, but this sudden all-out attack from Yue Jinxie almost knocked him out. Yue Jinxie was immediately taken aback to see such a thing, but it was a fatal mistake to be absent-minded for even a moment during a fierce battle of a divine king level. Boom, Yun-Chi's figure appeared behind Yue Jinxie and then heavily elbowed the latter's spine. It seems that Yun-Chi's moon-splitting cascade has reached the realm where he can use it whenever and however he wants. Mu Bingyun sighed in a low voice. At this moment, Yue Jinxie was feeling as if all his flesh, as well as every bone and blood vessel in his body, had thoroughly burst apart. He suddenly realized why Yue Huan was in such a sorry state just from getting hit by a single punch from Yun-Chi. Yue Jinxie was kicked away like a leather ball, and by the time he came to himself, he was already lying a couple kilometers away. Yue Huan laid prostrate on ground as he crazily spit a few mouthfuls of blood. He cursed in an angry voice, "Yue Jinxie, are you blind or what?" He had just cursed angrily when he suddenly discovered that Yun-Chi's ice-cold eyes were very close to his own. It made the hair of his whole body stand on end. A divine king was a mighty existence, after all. There was no way he would be completely defeated so easily. Yue Huan suddenly gritted his teeth as he crossed his arms without caring about his injuries. Immediately, a dark moon expanded before him and firmly resisted Yun-Chi's offense. "Yun-Chi, die, you bastard!" A loud shout was heard soon after, one that clearly indicated that the owner of the voice had lost his reason in anger. Blood was trickling down from the corner of Yue Jinxie's mouth, but he still launched a powerful attack from above like a furious, vile beast. He had learned his lesson now, so instead of aiming at Yun-Chi's back, he chose to attack the side of his body. Yun-Chi, however, didn't give him a glance or pull himself back to avoid Yue Jinxie. His energy fully concentrated on Yue Huan's body, as he quickly suppressed the dark moon to such an extent that its shape became distorted. When Yue Jinxie's energy was about to hit the target, a golden light flashed in front of his eyes all of a sudden. A golden crow manifest god. Everyone knew of the rumor that Yun-Chi had a special manifestation art, but knowing something and seeing it personally were two completely different things. In face of this power that was totally beyond the bounds of Yun-Chi's cultivation level, even if Yue Jinxie had lived 1,000 years more, he would still absolutely be caught unprepared when confronting it for the first time. Boom. Before Yue Jinxie could let out a shout in fright, the golden crow manifest god struck him right in the face. A scream resounded in the sky as all the profound energy unleashed by Yue Jinxie dispersed completely. His body was set on fire, and he fell head first onto the ground. Silence instantly came over Divine Moon City, so much so that even the sound of a pin dropping on the ground could be heard. Each and every profound practitioner of the Eastern Divine Region's lower, middle, and upper star realms, and even the Moon Guards and Moon God envoys of the Moon God realm, couldn't help but be stupefied at such a development. Countless people felt their hearts tighten up, and many others were swallowing down their saliva constantly. This monster called Xianxia, who had caused sensation in the entire God realm, had once again made them see something that was really difficult to believe. Earlier, almost no one dared believe that he could defeat the two princes. They had thought that even defeating one of them would be a difficult task for him. Yet, facing the two great sons of the Moon God Emperor, two level 3 divine kings, he was actually able to wreck them thoroughly. He had totally destroyed them from start to end. Yue Huan and Yue Jingxi were two divine kings of a king realm. The strength they possessed was certainly self-evident. But when the two of them fought Xianxia, they looked like monkeys who had just learned to walk. Not only were their bodies battered, they also got tricked by their opponent again and again. In the short time when it was almost impossible to react, they were severely injured by Xianxia, one after another. On the other hand, there wasn't the slightest injury on Xianxia's body. Not a crease was visible on his Ice Phoenix snow robe, not a speck of dust was visible either. Only 15 days had passed since Xianxia had defeated Luo Changsheng. At this time, they had finally begun to notice that on the last day of the conferred god battle, Xianxia hadn't displayed his full strength when he suppressed Luo Changsheng with absolute strength. He hadn't used even half of his strength. Xianxia didn't continue to attack any further. With both of his hands behind his back, he coldly smiled at the utterly miserable-looking princes of the Moon God realm that were a distance away. "Is this your so-called strength that I don't even have the qualifications to challenge?" When he was going all out, Xianxia's battle strength was definitely above either of them. But if the two great princes at the Divine King realm were to join hands, it would absolutely be enough to cause him significant trouble. However, unfortunately, it wasn't just battle strength that they were inferior in compared to Xianxia. Xianxia had gained his strength by treading on numerous corpses. He had experienced countless situations where he could die at any moment. But the two great princes of the Moon God realm had an honorable background and standing, so they had never gone through any life and death battles. They were several times older than Xianxia, and their knowledge of the profound way surpassed Xianxia's by a great realm. But when speaking of battle sense, the two of them combined were not even worthy to be compared to Xianxia, getting severely injured, suffering total defeat, and as a result, completely losing their dignity. When they heard Xianxia's sarcastic words at this time, blood filled the eyes of both Yue Huan and Yue Jingxi. Then they mustered all the strength left in their bodies and pounced towards Xianxia like crazy, wild beasts. As the princes of a king realm, they had never suffered such a setback and humiliation. To top it off, it was happening with everybody watching. Xianxia slowly took a step ahead with an indifferent look in his eyes. But the moment he took this casual step, everyone saw a blur before their eyes. After which, 3 Xianxias appeared all of a sudden. Every one of them had the perfect form and aura of Xianxia. "Oh, it's Star God's broken shadow." High above the clouds, Kaianai Yinger said in a light tone. Boom, boom, 2 loud sounds resounded in the area. As the profound energies of Yue Huan and Yue Jingxi shattered the 2 fake images among the 3 Xianxias, their bodies were hit by the aftershock of each other's energy, which made them almost vomit blood. As for the real body of Xianxia, it was less than 60 meters above them in the sky. He waved his arm downward, using the edge of his palm as the blade of a sword. A vast, mighty force poured down from above, accompanied by the momentary howl of a wolf. Wild Fang. Boom! The mightiness of this attack caused the world to shake, as if the vault of heaven was crumbling down. Yue Huan and Yue Jingxi appeared like 2 bundles of rice straw that were drawn in the hurricane of the doomsday, and blood spilled all round amidst their incomparably mournful screams. Bang! A loud sound rang out once again. The ground below their feet, paved with moonlight stones, caved in all of a sudden, and a bottomless ditch cracked open in no time. Tome, how can Xianxia use Heavenly Wolf Hell God's tome? As the second sword style, Wild Fang, thoroughly defeated Yue Huan and Yue Jingxi, it caused countless people to cry out in surprise. Oh, Heavenly Wolf's sword art. High above the clouds, Gu Zhu felt a bit doubtful. HMPH, who would have thought that Xing Jiukong would go so far to rope Xianxia in? Xianxia Yinger slightly raised her brows before speaking in a light tone. No, perhaps he was not the one who intended to teach this sword art to Yun Qi. Countless gazes shifted towards the location of the star god emperor. They discovered that instead of being surprised, there was a vague, strange smile on his face. Even the heavenly origin star god and the 4 star guards accompanying him didn't look too surprised, either. All the people understood something in their hearts. The moon god emperor stretched out his hand to make a grabbing gesture in the air. Immediately, Yue Huan and Yue Jingxi, who were blown extremely far away, flew back to him as if a formless suction power was acting on them, and smashed onto the ground nearby. Their bodies were completely dyed with blood and constantly twitching. It was clearly impossible for them to stand up on their own. Yue Jingxi, in particular, had most of his hair burned off and his whole face was scorched too. He appeared to be in an extremely miserable state. The pitiful sight of the 2 great princes was really frightening, and everyone had a deep look of worry in their eyes as they gazed at Yun Qi. No matter how many points he had in his favor, it was certainly not a good thing to beat the 2 princes to such an extent inside Divine Moon City. After all, it was the same as giving a hard slap in the face of the moon god realm. Good, very good. To everyone's surprise, despite the fact that his 2 sons were beaten so utterly in his own territory and had completely lost their dignity, the moon god emperor wasn't angry in the least, nor was there an unpleasant look on his face. Instead, he slowly nodded his head. Yue Huan Jingxi, do you now understand why Yun Qi is the conferred god number 1? Yue Huan's and Yue Jingxi's bodies were twitching, and there were painful expressions on their faces. They had thought that Yun Qi daring to beat them to such an extent would definitely make the moon god emperor furious, and it was also quite likely that Yun Qi would be killed off. But hearing the words of their royal father, he actually seemed to be praising Yun Qi. Yun Qi raised his brows. Make sure to remember the disgrace and crushing defeat you experienced today. If you can make up for the dignity you have lost someday, your suffering today will not have been in vain. He didn't comfort them, nor punish Yun Qi, but instead lectured them on their defeat. Yue Huan wanted to say something, but his throat was writhing in pain, and he was finding it difficult to utter any sounds. Then his whole body spasmed, and he passed out soon after. Watching Yue Huan faint, Yue Jingxi's eyes rolled up as he passed out too. It was not clear whether he had truly fainted or was just pretending. Take them away from here, the moon god emperor said with a light sigh and a wave of his hand. Afterwards, he turned his eyes to Yun Qi. This king has too many descendants that have different talents and natures, but are enjoying their lives under my wings. It is hard for them to avoid becoming conceited and start looking down on all who are not from a king realm. It's the same with Yue Huan and Jingxi, so this incident could be considered a very good lesson to them. Yun Qi, if you have free time in the future, you can often visit the moon god realm as a guest. Fix these good-for-nothing descendants on the behalf of this king, and let them know that what is meant by there is always someone better out there. Everyone was dumbfounded upon listening to the words of the moon god emperor. The moon god emperor is exaggerating, Yun Qi replied. He actually felt sincerity in the moon god emperor's words. Ha! The moon god emperor let out a long sigh for some reason. He gave Yun Qi a deep glance. This king has numerous descendants. If even one of them could be half as capable as you, this king would have no regrets even in the face of death. Such high evaluation of Yun Qi by the moon god emperor astounded the profound practitioners of the eastern divine region, as well as the people of the moon god realm. Yun Qi was evidently taken aback too. He didn't know how to respond to such words. He was trying to embarrass the moon god realm with his actions just now. But the conclusion of the whole thing was totally different from his expectations. The moon god emperor wasn't embarrassed and didn't become angry. From his sigh and the words, "no regrets even in the face of death," Yun Qi could even feel a faint feeling of helplessness and sorrow. Clap, clap, clap. A crisp and clear clapping sound rang out in the area as the star god emperor walked over while clapping his hands. There was a smile on his face. Good, this is truly good. Just by speaking a few words, the moon god emperor changed the meaning of such an extremely disgraceful matter. Not only have you managed to keep your dignity, but you also showed yourself to be a very magnanimous person. You are truly worthy of being the emperor of moon god realm. This king truly admires your ability. The moon god emperor turned around as he said with a laugh, "It seems that the star god emperor has some advice for me." "I wouldn't dare advise you," the star god emperor plainly said before smiling. I only have a few doubts and hope that the Moon God Emperor would be generous enough to dispel them. Oh, the Moon God Emperor slightly narrowed his eyes. He was getting the woman of glazed glass to be his empress during his great wedding on this day, so the Star God Emperor would naturally be extremely unhappy. The Star God Emperor's face had been dark and gloomy this whole time, but they now contained an unusual light, which made the Moon God Emperor be on his guard all of a sudden. This king wants to ask whether the God Empress that the Moon God Emperor is about to marry has Xia as her surname, the Star God Emperor asked. Yun Qi suddenly raised his brows. The eyes of Moon God Emperor shook faintly, but he smiled in an incomparably calm manner. Correct. May I ask how you came to know about it? The Star God Emperor didn't answer his question. The smile on his face grew even more mysterious. Then does this Xia Qingyu have 2, 5, 4, 6 in the year, month, day, hour of her birth, respectively? Hearing these words, Yun Qi opened his eyes wide in shock as his brows furrowed. It was because the Star God Emperor had correctly spoken Xia Qingyu's date of birth. There wasn't the slightest mistake. What's going on? The Moon God Emperor was intensely shocked in his heart. For the sake of her protection, and because her existence was treated in an extremely special manner in the Moon God realm. Although Xia Qingyu had stayed in the Moon God realm for many years, there were extremely few people who had come into contact with her. In the entire Moon God realm, there were only 3 people, including the Moon God Emperor and Xia Qingyu herself, who knew about her date of birth. Why would the Star God Emperor be aware of it? The Moon God Emperor didn't reply straight away. A faint smile emerged at the corner of his mouth, but the expression in his eyes slowly turned grim. Just what exactly does the Star God Emperor want to say? The people around became absolutely silent as the 2 great God Emperors conversed with each other. The atmosphere in the area also grew heavy all of a sudden. It was because they could clearly feel that there was something fishy about this conversation. Ha 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 ha, the Star God Emperor let out a loud laugh. This king was a bit doubtful until now, unable to believe the thing before his eyes. But seeing Moon God Emperor's reaction, it indeed seems be the truth. Oh, it has really broadened the horizons of this king. What are you talking about? Moon God Emperor. The smile on the Star God Emperor's face gradually faded as his face turned colder bit by bit. Despite being the realm king of the Moon God realm, you actually want to marry a woman who is already married as your empress. This is a violation of people's emotions and the common sense we are supposed to act according to. It's an act that violates the heavenly laws and the principles of human relations. If this despicable action of taking someone else's wife by force was something that only concerned you, it might be still all right for you. But are you not afraid of the Moon God realm also becoming the laughingstock of all the people under the heavens? The words of the Star God realm sounded as if countless thunderbolts had simultaneously bombarded in the area. Everyone was dumbstruck upon hearing them. The God Empress was already married. The Moon God Emperor wants to take someone else's wife by force. Each and every word said by the Star God Emperor was world-shocking, so much so that all the profound practitioners heard countless thunderclaps inside their heads. Everyone from the Moon God realm, the Moon Gods, the Moon Envoys, the Moon Guards, all of them glared at the Star God Emperor. If the one who spoke such words wasn't the Star God Emperor, they would have captured and even killed him on the spot. Ha ha ha. The Moon God Emperor, however, began to laugh in response. His voice also grew cold. Xing Jukong, this king already knew that you certainly have ill intentions behind coming here personally, but I never thought that you'd utter such malicious and slandering words. You have greatly hurt and disappointed this king. So when the distinguished Star God Emperor becomes jealous, he can also turn into a mad dog that has lost its mind. The Moon God Emperor had called the Star God Emperor directly by his name, instead of using his God Emperor title. And he hadn't held back in the least with his sarcastic remark, either. It was apparent that he was truly angered now, even if he looked calm on the surface. The Star God Emperor wasn't the least bit furious, and instead smiled at him. Slander? Which part of this king's words was slander? Ha! The Moon God Emperor coldly laughed. You said that this king's God Empress is already married. Could it be that your divine sense has retrograded to such an extent that you can't even perceive the aura of her vital yin? These words immediately awakened all the people that were in a shocked state until now. That's right. Although the appearance of Xia Qingyu was startling, she hadn't restrained her aura, and so the aura of her vital yin, and especially that of the glazed glass, could be sensed quite clearly by them. Having the aura of vital yin proved that she was obviously a virgin. Ha 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 ha. The star god emperor laughed aloud. How does possessing the aura of vital yin have anything to do with whether she is married or not? Yue Wuya, you need to explain just what is meant by this. The star god emperor turned over his palm as an opened wedding contract appeared on it. Following, starlight flickered in his hand, and the words inscribed on the contract immediately projected in the sky above. Everyone or sent could read them very clearly. On the wedding contract, the names of Xiao Qi and Xia Qingyu were inscribed, their complete date of birth, as well as the words blue wind and floating cloud. Yun Qi, what is going on here? Standing beside Yun Qi, Mu Bingyun asked in a low voice with knitted brows. I don't know. Yun Qi shook his head, but other than feeling confused, he already had a rough guess. It was very obvious that someone had been eavesdropping on his conversation with Mu Bingyun. Otherwise, just the word Qingyu on the wedding contract was far from enough for the star god emperor to be so sure about it, referring to none other than Xia Qingyu. That servant girl called Jin Yue, whom he had given the marriage contract to, so she could bring it to Xia Qingyu, was definitely robbed midway. Was it the star god emperor or some other person? Surname Xia, name Qingyu, and the date of birth also matched completely. Does Moon God Emperor want to deny anything? Or does Moon God Emperor want to call it a mere coincidence? Perhaps you want to say that this marriage contract is fake. The star god emperor narrowed his eyes. His words actually sounded as if he wanted to come up with excuses for the moon god emperor. The eyes of the moon god emperor grew a bit gloomy, and his brows also quivered uncontrollably a few times. He looked sideways in the direction of the vanishing moon's celestial palace, but didn't see the figure of Xia Qingyu. He had sensed that it was extremely likely that the contract in the star god emperor's hand was real. Furthermore, the star god emperor definitely knew something, or he would not be acting so sure of himself. Letting out a sigh inwardly, the eyes of the moon god emperor gradually regained their calm, as he said indifferently, "It's certainly true that Qingyu's surname is Xia, and her date of birth also completely matches with the one on this marriage contract. It is definitely possible for this marriage contract in your hand to be real." Whoa, the people in Divine Moon City were shocked by the moon god emperor's words. Ha ha! A light flashed across the star god emperor's eyes. So the moon god emperor acknowledges it after all. Acknowledge. The moon god emperor smiled coldly. Xing Jiukang, you seem to be someone who gets excited too soon. In that case, this king doesn't mind telling you a few things. Qingyu is from the lower realms, and she was certainly married to a person at the age of 16. The one she married was definitely a man called Xiao Qi, as mentioned on this wedding contract. Although the two of them didn't really live the life of a married couple, they were indeed officially wed. This king has known of these things since a long time ago. Yun Qi. Therefore, it is definitely possible for the contract in your hand to belong to Qingyu. However, the tone of the moon god emperor changed. The marriage contract might still exist, but Qingyu's previous husband passed away 8 years ago. This contract has lost its meaning now. Xing Jiukang, I'm afraid that you're going to be disappointed. Haha, is that so? The star god emperor wasn't panicked in the least. Moon god emperor, I'm sure that you really want to know where I got this contract, right? Before the moon god realm could respond, the star god emperor's gaze shifted right to Yun Qi, as he said with a faint smile, Yun Qi, I believe that you certainly recognize this marriage contract, and especially who this Xiao Qi person is. I mean, this is your big gift to the moon god empress-to-be, after all. Following the words of the moon god emperor, everyone's gaze swiftly focused on Yun Qi. The moon god emperor also turned around all of a sudden, as an expression of shock and disbelief flashed in the depths of his eyes. The reason you challenged the two princes of moon god realm and defeated them so thoroughly was to dampen the celebration of this wedding ceremony, right? The star god emperor said in a gloomy voice. After all, despite being an unimaginably mighty and towering existence, the moon god emperor wanted to steal your wife. Any man would have hated him for his guts, isn't that it? It seemed as if the world had completely frozen in this instant. It was frighteningly quiet, so much so that even slightest sound of breathing or heartbeat could not be heard. The widely opened eyes of all the people were fixed on Yun Qi. They were waiting for Yun Qi's reply, but didn't dare imagine what kind of reply he would have for them. Yun Qi raised his eyes slowly as they came into contact with those of the moon god emperor. He replied with no expression on his face, "Yes, that marriage contract is mine. The Xiao Qi on it is none other than me." Buzz, Yun Chi's tone had not been too serious, but it had exploded in the brains of everyone present like a huge lightning bolt that came out of the blue. They had come today to attend the Moon God Emperor's earth-shaking wedding celebration. So they had definitely never thought that they would be shaken by so many shocking events, one after the other, that it left their very souls trembling. The God Empress that was due to be wed to the Moon God Emperor was actually Yun Chi's lawfully wedded wife. Holy shit. Even if all of the otherworldly talents in the universe gathered together and brainstormed until their heads cracked open, they would definitely not be able to write such a script. Everyone's mouths had gaped open. The Snow Song and Flame God realms were so shocked that their eyes were practically bulging out of their sockets, and their very souls were thrown into confusion. This was especially so for Hugh Ruli. His mouth was gaping open so widely that one could just about stuff one Hugh Poyan inside. The Moon God Emperor's eyes were shaking wildly. He looked at Yun Chi for a long time before slowly saying, "You are truly her." "Yes, I am," Yun Chi said in a cold and hard voice before he turned and looked towards the Star God Emperor. "However, there is one thing I must make clear. The words that the Moon God Emperor just said did indeed not contain any falsity or excuses. 8 years ago, I was most certainly dead." The Moon God Emperor. The Star God Emperor's brow furrowed greatly upon hearing those words. At that time, everyone thought that I was dead, including Xia Qingyu. Furthermore, after that she arrived in the God realm and has not seen me again, so naturally she was not aware that I still lived, Yun Chi said impassively. That is also to say that before today, Xia Qingyu was indeed not aware that I was still alive. He had definitely not said the words he had just spoken, because he wanted to help the Moon God Emperor. Because of Jasmine, he definitely did not have any good feelings towards the Star God Emperor. Furthermore, the Star God Emperor had gotten a hold of his marriage contract and was clearly trying to use him. How could he be willing to be freely manipulated as the Star God Emperor's tool? So to her, the fact that I am still alive is merely an accident that should not exist. This marriage contract was something I had given to Xia Qingyu's maid, Jin Yue, so that she could hand it over to Xia Qingyu. The purpose of doing all of this was so that she could erase this accident with her own 2 hands. After all, even though she and I were once husband and wife, our feelings have always been thin and weak. Furthermore, we were separated by death for 8 years. I'm afraid that there probably isn't much left of what was an originally weak and thin relationship in the first place. So this marriage contract, that should have long ago been consigned to dust, could perhaps barely be considered to be the last remaining bit. Yun Chi's voice was very cold, and it held nearly no emotion. He looked at the Star God Emperor, and even though he was staring directly at a God Emperor, his gaze still remained cold and cutting. Everything I should have said has been said. Right now, I have a question that I wish to pose to the Star God Emperor. Why did this marriage contract end up in your possession? And how and why did you come to the conclusion that the Xiao Qi written on this marriage contract was me? The Moon God Emperor stared at Yun Chi, a complex look in his eyes that no one else would be able to understand. Yun Chi's explanation was beyond the Star God Emperor's calculations, and it had clearly messed up his own schemes. His expression grew faintly rigid as he gave a bland chuckle. If this king told you that he had just picked it up, would you believe me? I believe you. Of course I believe you. Yun Chi nodded his head. A distinguished God Emperor of a king realm, it is definitely not possible for such a personage to stoop so low as to steal something secretly from another person. Everyone present was so shaken up that they felt their brains had been rattled. At this moment, Yun Chi was interrogating the Star God Emperor and making certain insinuations about him, and they could not even react in time to feel shock. So it turns out that he is her first husband who has come back from the dead. So it looks like the taking by force hat doesn't fit anymore, Kai-and-I Yinger said with some disappointment. This, in addition to the fact Xia Qingyu's vital yin aura still remains, means that Xing Jukong will not be able to throw him for a loop this time. When she heard these words, it sounded like this matter had nothing to do with her. However, being able to irritate Yue Wuya for a moment isn't a bad idea either. But Yun Chi, on the other hand, now things are about to get ugly. But that makes it all the more interesting, yes, Kinga Yinger said with a faint smile. At this moment, a stream of air flowed across the area. The vanishing moon's celestial palace, that had always been quietly floating in the light of the divine moon, suddenly flashed with profound light before it started to slowly move. It continued flying before finally coming to rest in the space above Yun Chi and the rest of them. The curtain of light opened, and Xia Qingyu stepped out from behind it. She slowly floated to the ground, and it was as if a celestial fairy from the Moon Palace was descending to the earth. A mere glimpse of her from afar had already painted an inestimable portrait of beauty. But now that she had come forward and graced all of them with her presence, it caused a stifling sensation that was hard to put into words to assault everyone who saw her. Today was the day of her marriage, the day that she was supposed to become a god empress, yet her long moon-white robes were exceptionally spare and simple. It was not even equivalent to the divine moon robes worn by the daughters of the moon god emperor. Yet even this startlingly simple attire was exuding an incomparably eye-catching brilliance and grace because of her. Her eyes were extremely calm and tranquil. They resembled a secluded pool that would never be disturbed by anything. Yet they seemed to hold all the delicate beauty that this world had to offer. She merely stood there quietly, neither laughing nor scowling, but all eyes were focused on her. Even the two great god emperors, the star god emperor and the moon god emperor, had become mere props in the background when standing next to her, their presence unconsciously forgotten at that moment. Yuan-Chi looked at her before slowly averting his gaze. She was still Xia Qingyu, but compared to the past, she had completely and utterly changed. She was clearly so close to him, yet she radiated a mysterious and strange illusory feeling. It was as if she was a goddess that had strolled out of an ancient painting. It felt as if she should not exist on this sinful earth. This thought silently flashed in nearly everyone's hearts. Perhaps, just based on her heavenly beauty alone, she was sufficiently qualified to become a god empress, even if she did not have a heart of glazed glass. Being at the summit of this universe's ideal of beauty and grace was now something that not only belonged to the dragon queen and goddess, but also something that belonged to her. Qingyu, the moon god emperor, looked at her, a complex look in his eyes. Is Yuan-Chi truly the previous husband that you told me about before? Yes. Xia Qingyu gave a light nod of her head. Yuan-Chi. The sound of saliva being swallowed spread across the crowd like a wave. It was fine to treat the words of everyone else who had spoken so far as assumptions, but with a single word from Xia Qingyu, this had become an absolutely irrefutable truth. Everything that they had heard so far was actually true. The moon god emperor was rendered speechless for a moment before he gave Yuan-Chi a deep look. Xia Qingyu lightly turned her gaze to someone else. Star god emperor, would it be fine to return that marriage contract to me? Heh heh. This was something that was originally the both of yours in the first place, so it's natural that it should return to its original owner. The star god emperor gave a bland chuckle before pushing out his finger. The marriage contract lightly floated over and Xia Qingyu grasped it in her hand. This is something concerning me, so let me be the one to resolve it, Xia Qingyu said in a soft voice. The moon god emperor inclined his head as his gaze swept over Xia Qingyu and Yuan-Chi separately. After that, he said something that was extremely strange. If it is him, then he is worthy of you after all. With those words, he withdrew. Following a gesture of his hand, the rest of them hurriedly withdrew as well. Very quickly, a huge empty space was formed, and only Yuan-Chi and Xia Qingyu stood there, in silence in the middle of this empty world, as well as the vanishing moon celestial palace that was floating quietly in the air above them. To think that such a thing would actually happen. The eternal heaven god emperor gave a deep sigh of lament. Yuan-Chi is the child of the heavens, while Xia Qingyu possesses the heart of glazed glass, and so she is the daughter of the heavens. Furthermore, the two of them have been husband and wife, and had even come from the same place. Blue wind, floating cloud. Yet neither of these people were born in the god realm. So just what kind of existence is that planet in the lower realms known as Neptune? Heh heh. The Brahma heaven god emperor gave a dry chuckle upon hearing those words. During this period of time, the Brahma monarch god realm has sent people to scour the lower realms in hopes of finding that planet known as Neptune. I had believed that the stars of this myriad universe were boundless, and that this search would be akin to searching for a needle in a great ocean, a most arduous and difficult task. Yet who would have thought that the fortune of my Brahma monarch god realm was good, and we would indeed find that very planet? Oh! The eternal heaven god emperor's gaze swiveled towards him, but his eyes did not hold much expectation. It was exactly as the eternal heaven god emperor thought. That planet Neptune was a dead planet and there were no living creatures in it. Ha 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 ha. The eternal heaven god emperor was not the least bit surprised. Instead, he laughed in a very composed manner. Yuan-Chi is an extremely clever person, so how could it be possible that he would reveal his true origins? Him using Neptune as a shield was something completely logical and natural. But as for you, Brahma Heaven God Emperor, you clearly knew that this information was false, yet you spared no effort to search for this planet anyways. It looks like Xianxia has truly caught your eye. Ha 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 ha. The Brahma Heaven God Emperor gave a hearty laugh at that. It's not merely enough to call it catching my eye. If not, how would I be willing to betroth Yinger to him? The will of the goddess is something I am afraid that even you, the Brahma Heaven God Emperor, cannot interfere with. So this so-called betrothal is no more or less the will of the goddess herself. The eternal Heaven God Emperor's eyes were profound and deep beyond measure. On the final day of the conferred god battle, the actions of the Brahma monarch god realm may have tricked everyone else, but it could not possibly have tricked him as well. But given this old one's minimal understanding of the goddess, it is not possible for her betrothal to be a genuine one. On the contrary, just this one word alone has caused Xianxia to be hated and envied by an innumerable amount of people. Moreover, this hatred and envy was spread across the entire god realm. Furthermore, the attention of any one of these people is something far beyond what Xianxia can endure. The eternal Heaven God Emperor has overthought things, the Brahma Heaven God Emperor said with a faint smile. Xianxia may not be able to endure it, but this old one can most certainly endure it. The eternal Heaven God Emperor said slowly. His voice was composed, but the implication behind his words were clear. At least for the next 3 years, no one will be able to touch a hair on his head. As for what happens after the next 3 years, that is up to his own choices and destiny. The eternal Heaven God Emperor greatly admired Xianxia. Even though Xianxia had rejected his offer to become his direct disciple, he was still willing to protect him with all of his strength. After all, he was the miracle of the Eastern divine region. The Brahma Heaven God Emperor smiled, but he did not reply. As everyone looked at them with bated breath, Xianxia walked towards Xianxia. When she finally came to a stop, the distance between the two of them was very small. She was merely a single step away from him. The two people finally met each other's eyes. Their gazes were composed and not a ripple appeared on their faces, but the ripples of their hearts and souls were known only to themselves. "It's been a long time," Xianxia said, her voice as light as a dream. "Yes, it has been a long time," Xianxia nodded in response. "You practically haven't changed at all, yet you have changed so much. Is the sect still well?" she asked. "Very much so? Then that's good." Every word, every action, every expression, and every look was something everyone present could see clearly. They were once husband and wife, yet their words and emotions were as bland and indifferent as two strangers who had met on the road. What Xianxia was about to do, and what was about to happen next, was something everyone very clearly understood. On one hand was her previous husband, whom she had an extremely indifferent relationship with, someone who had burst onto the scene with much fanfare in the Eastern divine region. On the other hand was the realm king of the moon god realm, one of the 4 god emperors of the Eastern divine region, an existence that stood at the pinnacle of the entire god realm, the entire universe even. There was no simpler choice in the world to make than her choice today. Even if one were to make all the concessions in the world, even if Xianxia truly still had feelings for Xianxia, and even if those feelings were of the kind that would not fade even until her death. Given this current scenario and setting, the wedding celebration of a god emperor, she could not make any other choice. Because if she chose to abandon this wedding in the end, it would undoubtedly cause all the dignity and face that the moon god emperor had left to go down the drain. It would cause the moon god emperor, who was originally about to wash away the shame and humiliation he had suffered because of what had happened to Yue Wugu all those years ago, to truly become the greatest laughingstock under heaven. The result would be that both she and Xianxia would die under the moon god emperor's thunderous fury. She would not dare to, and even more so, it would not be possible for her to. As such, Xianxia and Xianxia would sever the final remnants of their bonds, destroy the marriage contract, and go their own ways. There was no other possibility. This pair is actually what could be called a golden couple. Ah, how pitiable. Guju gave a rare sigh of lament. Uncle Gu. Everyone's attention was fixed on Xianxia and Xianxia, but Kaianai Yinger's gaze was focused on the moon god emperor. Don't you think that Yue Wuya's reaction is rather strained? When faced with such a situation, just which man can be magnanimous to this extent? What's more, this is Yue Wuya we are talking about, someone who had suffered such humiliation because of the matter with Yue Wugu. Guju. It's been more than 8 years. I had never thought that the next time we would meet, it would be in this place. I had never imagined it either. The words exchanged by the two people remained calm and composed. There was no joy or sadness there. Have you always been in the moon god realm? Amen. I've never left it before. How about you? When did you come here? 3 years ago, but I've basically been in the snow song realm all this while. The god realm is vast, and the eastern divine regions is just one of the divine regions within it. Have you ever paid a visit to the other divine regions? No, not at all, Yunqi replied. I haven't either. Since that's the case. Xia Qingyu suddenly extended her arm and grabbed Yunqi's hand. Yunqi was instantly stunned by her actions. After that, Xia Qingyu's voice, that sounded like an illusion or dream, rang in his ears. Then why don't we go and have a look? Her celestial voice lingered in his ears as Yunqi was suddenly carried up by Xia Qingyu, before transforming into a flashing comet which disappeared into the vanishing moon celestial palace's curtain of light. The vanishing moon celestial palace radiated profound light before it gathered up a vast amount of air and shot into the distance. In just a single instant, it had vanished from the sight of all who had gathered here.